that dial. You're now listening to Debate Talk Free Radio.
I come to you today in peace. My name is Imuna Yisrael, recent author of The Angry Quote-Unquote Black Woman Syndrome Revisited, Volume 1, Her Mind. It is a hot new piece all about the mind of the quote-unquote angry black woman. How does she operate in this society? How has slavery affected her? Just opening up really a 200-plus-year-old stereotype. So if you haven't taken a look as yet, go ahead over to www.imunayisrael.com and you can definitely check that out. Or you can just go to Amazon and look up Angry Black Woman Syndrome Revisited and see us there. You can check me on all social media, Twitter, Facebook, Periscope, YouTube, everything under Imuna Yisrael. So until next time, thank you for tuning in and definitely be the change that you desire to see in the world. One.
Brother B.A. Ben Abraham, and I'm your host of the Man Up segment on Debate Talk For You platform. The objective is for all brothers from different walks of life to come together, link up, and build on matters concerning all various stages of life. If anyone would like to reach out on concepts and ideas, you can reach Brother B.A. at radicalrhyme1984@gmail.com. Again, radicalrhyme1984@gmail.com. Tap in. Let's build. Shalom. Shalom.
Today's show is entitled, Is DNA Testing Evidence of Hebrew Identity? Once again, today's show is entitled, Is DNA Testing Evidence of Hebrew Identity? Without further ado, let's just jump right into this and introduce my special guest. My first special guest is here live on Debate Talk Radio, representing the Shield Squad. This is G-Konsciousness. Welcome to the show.
What's going on? What's going on? Peace, Sal Showtime. Peace to the audience out there. All praise to the Most High God. Hope y'all enjoying y'all evening, and hope y'all enjoy the show today.
All right, what's going on, man? What's been going on with you lately, man? Anything you want to notify the people about? That.
Man, not really too much, man. I just been kind of laid back a little bit, besides going to go check out my page, G-Konsciousness, my YouTube page, and, consciousness is spelled with a K. So, we ain't been doing too much. You can go check out the little shows we've been doing. I've been doing on YouTube, that's about it, man, and keep on moving, man, and spreading his word. I'm going to collab with some of the brothers here in a minute to get out on these streets and get it in, too, just as well. So that's what I'm doing, starting to do now. So as I got a little bit more time freed up. So that's about it, man.
Oh, yeah, I've been checking out your videos, man. Listen, I see you stepped it up with the graphic work and whatever software you're using. Doing the thing, the graphic work is pretty good, man. You can see the scriptures and, I like the angles that, that you put things. I mean, you're stepping it up, man, with the YouTube page.
Yeah, man, I'm definitely trying to step my game. Yeah, I'm definitely trying to step my game up, man. I was lagging, I was behind. And, I'm trying to do that, get creative, so people, when they are listening and learning, they can also, have something to look at, just as well, some nice graphics, information. It seems to me that a lot of people are drawn to that, so I definitely had to step my game up. Next, I'm probably going to start making videos just as well, because I see that the internet world is a way of how people are getting touched out here, so I got to step my game up just as well.
Once again, feeling that's G-Consciousness right here on Debate Talk Radio. My next special guest has been on the show for a long period of time, and he is still here. He did a couple lessons, a couple debates, and, you see this brother also on YouTube, on Facebook, very active on social media. He is here live tonight on Debate Talk Radio. This is my brother Zadok from Israel. Welcome to the show.
Yo, praise Yahweh, baby. You already know who it is, man. It's your brother Zadok from Israel, a.k.a. the God Hop from C, hashtag just a vessel, nobody special. All praises due to the Most High God, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. the only true and living God. Thanks, Sal, for, having me once again. The homie LARON for, wanting to do this discussion, man. Hopefully we can, edify. We can agree where we agree and cordially disagree where we disagree if need be. Man, I'm just still trying to serve the Lord, man, trying to stay focused. Me and my brethren, the Lord has been blessing us, man. I mean, we being reached out to from around the world. It's kind of eerie and unbelievable, but, he hasn't given us more than we can handle. So we just thank him for, for choosing us, man, to be a part of his great kingdom work in this generation and, just trying to stay focused.
Yeah, once again, that's Zadok Initial. I see you also on the Facebook, man, doing your thing, going live, letting us know different topics, things of that nature. And if you didn't know, your elder here was here, Brother Judah. He was here last week, I believe, with our Brother Josh. And that was an awesome conversation on the Man Up segment on DT4U Radio. Did you ever get a chance to check that show out?
No, I heard about it actually at our Sabbath gathering last week. And for the record, Brother Judah isn't my elder. He's actually my brother. We're peers. We're the same age. You know what I'm saying? And we started the organization together. So I just wanted to be clear about that. I don't. At this point, we are the elders of our congregation. We don't necessarily have elders we sit under anymore. But I heard that him and Brother Josh had a great discussion, and I hope a lot of people, heard sound doctrine, sound conversation, and, if you had an issue with anything them brothers said, I adjure you get at them because it was put out there so people could dialogue. I heard it was really good.
Yeah, man, I didn't know that, bro. You had the same age. Okay. No doubt. But, listen, go check it out. If you missed it, it was entitled Brotherhood and Fellowship. It was a good dialogue. Go check it out, family. It's on the YouTube page, on iTunes, and, of course, on Blog Talk Radio. All right, once again, as you see the topic is...
Sal, my bad. You know what? A lot of people think Judah older because he got so much gray in his beard. Man, Judah ain't old, man. That man went to high school with me, homie. That man just went. He just go up on the mountain so much and try to, dip into the light that he keep coming down a little greater every time. That's all that is, man. Judah ain't old at all. A lot of people be surprised when I say that, but I'll be like, yo, if that man didn't have that big beard and all that gray in it, you wouldn't think that. He just grayed up quicker than all of us. That's all.
I shouldn't be talking. I got a couple grays in my head right now. Gray spots in my head right now. You know what I mean? So
praise
you're right about that. You're right about that. All right, let's get this show started, family. Once again, get your pen and pads ready. As I always say, take down those notes and call in live. Today's show is entitled, "Is DNA Testing Evidence of Hebrew Identity?" Is DNA testing evidence of Hebrew identity? What we're going to do is we're going to start off with an opening statement. We're going to start off with my brother G-Kon. We're going to give him 10 minutes with an opening statement, and after that, we're going to pretty much have them dialogue with each other. And, of course, we're going to pick our spots and allow the audience to chime in. But let's get this started. So I'm going to open up G-Kon's line. You have 10 minutes, my brother? Go ahead. Hello, G-Kon, are you there? Oh. Hold on 1 second. Yeah, G-Kon.
Can you hear me? Mic check. I
got you now, brother.
Yeah. So, all right, cool. I have my mic muted. I just want to give a shout out to that brother Zadok for taking the discussion, man. And I had some things going on earlier on, and we was able to do it. We wasn't able to do it at that time, but I'm glad we're able to do it now. And it's always good to speak with that brother, man, and get edified just as well and build. One of the reasons why we picked this topic was because I think that for the most part, what we see that's going on in Israel, far as what's dealing with the Jews, in general, and then African Americans that's in America now. Some of them might be Jews and some of them might not be. And so there's been a lot of talk lately about people saying that they're blood Israelites. And so, when you make the claim and you say you're blood Israelites, we want to kind of get off on the topic dealing with genetics and stuff like that. So I thought that it would be a great topic to kind of get off into some of those things. And so, basically, I wanted to just get off into some definitions before I get started. So when we go into the dialogue, we can look into those things just as well. So when you talk about haplogroup, just a basic, simple definition. A haplogroup is a group of genes in an organism that are inherited together from a single parent, and a haplogroup. And it says a haploid from the Greek, which means haplos, one-fold, simple. In English, group is a group of similar haplotypes that share a common ancestor with a single nucleotide polymorphism mutation. More specifically, a haplogroup combination of alleles, which deals with the chromosomes, at different chromosomes regions that are closely linked that tend to be inherited together. So then when you start dealing with DNA, which is deoxyribonucleotide acids, is a thread-like chain of nucleotides carrying the genetic instructions used in the growth, development, functions, and reproduction of all known living organisms and many viruses. DNA and we can stop right there. So then we start dealing with the genome. The genome is basically like a biological or molecular map that's in your body. It deals with your genome sequences, dealing with your DNA sequences within your body. And so it says molecular biology, genetics. A genome is the genetic material of an organism. It consists of the DNA or RNA in RNA viruses. The genome includes both the genes, the coding regions, and the non-coding DNA, as well as the genetic material of mitochondrial DNA and also chloroplast as well. So then when you start getting off into stuff like autosomal DNA and stuff like that, autosomal DNA would be in the sense of like when you start dealing with chromosomes, like if you on your Y, which is your paternal chromosome, or your mitochondrial DNA, which is from your maternal, then you'll have like autosomal DNA, like mutations on the X and on the Y, and so these things are passed down between both parents, and so. Once these things are outside of the sex chromosomes, is your autosomal DNA, and those things that are mutations that are on those very chromosomes that are passed down. I think between like 150, you gain between like 150 mutations. When each child is born, just about it's 100 to 150. So that child is picking up different mutations. Now these things could take place due to environment change. Diet, things of that sort. Also, when we talk about sexual selection with different groups of people coming together, and stuff like that. So this is how that actually takes place. And so when we start looking at DNA, it's really nothing to be afraid of. Or when you start looking at genetic testing, or what we see, what we share. Within what in each individual share closely within them, or from a long range within them, they have this shared genetic information. And so we look at these mutations that we see that's in the genome. We can actually look at these sequences, and some people may say, well, these things are one organism A to organism B has this amount of change, and therefore at this constant rate we can determine the time that this mutation will take at this constant rate in this day. But in the past it could have been farther. So I don't promote that these mutations that we see that at this constant rate today takes millions of years. I believe in the past that these rates of mutations from these organisms of changing from one organism to the next organism, and the amount of change actually is something that happened at a rapid pace, possibly after the flood. And so we see that like certain haplogroups has what you call subclass that comes from those original haplogroups of those group of people. And so when you look at it, we can actually trace some of those the molecular clock within those genomes to actually see the migration of these people where they actually came from. And so, not saying it's a science that is absolute science, but we can see that these guys have some type of genetic or shared information that they came in contact with each other at one part of time, especially if they're closely related or distant related to each other. We know that they came together. Most of the time when you look at a place like Africa, where you see the majority of differences because it's like a bottleneck there, we see most of the E haplogroup and the subclass of the E haplogroup that we see that comes out of that. We know that group or those groups started there because the majority of that E is there in that group. So when you start looking at the haplogroups that come outside of Africa, then we know that that the majority, like as far as when we talk about what we're going to be talking about today, is J, the J haplogroup, which comes out of Asia. And so we see the migration of these mutations among these people that goes their separate ways. We see J1 comes up out of, I believe, West Asia, and then we see it also migrate down into the Near East, as well as into Europe, as well as we also have J in North Africa just as well. And so in South Africa, because we also see that some of the Ethiopians carry J1C3, which is what we call the Cohen gene. And so we see that they migrated from Yemen and came across. So we see that this haplogroup, this J marker, has been moving around a bit, just as well as when we start looking at the E marker as far as E1B1B. We start looking at that marker in North Africa. And so what I'm saying is we kind of look at the Jewish people today, and we can see that they carry these markers, whether if it's their haplogroup or whether if it's autosomally speaking. These people carry a lot of these shared genes with other groups of Jews that are culturally Jews around the world that have never came back to the land from the first two dispersions. They stayed distant and stayed also within those certain lands. And so when they do a test, they kind of find that these groups genetically share something with each other, that are saying that they Jews. And so the Ashkenazi Jews is something that I want to question today, because we know that the 13 Tribe book and some of Aaron Elhock's work, that he did, kind of go against some of those things. And so that's what's in question today. Is those Jews that we see today, can we genetically see that they trace back to other Jews that are around the world that culturally have some of the things that we see that Israel had that never came back to the land? So with that, I just want to end on that because I know I'm pressed for time.
All right, family, once again, is DNA testing evidence of Hebrew identity is the topic of this dialogue. The number to call in is 319-527-6239. So now let's go to Zadok Ben Israel with his opening statement. It's going to be 10 minutes each. I'm going to open up his phone line and go ahead.
Hey, salute everyone. God bless. I'm thankful for the opportunity once again. Want to shout out all my Kata followers, all my Dojo participators. God bless y'all. What's interesting about the question that is the topic for tonight? My answer would be yes, if we were 100% positive of where the DNA samples that start the registries are coming from. I believe that there are a lot of assumptions made in the beginning of 23andMe, Ancestry.com, Family DNA, and a few others. And so with that being said, these things are questionable. We're dealing with a science that is only about 20 years old in the context of trying to determine these modal haplotypes and, this, that, and the third. So my thing is this, everyone. My answer would be I believe that DNA could prove some things if we were sure of where all the DNA is coming from and who are the progenitors. Like, what is your start point with the DNA? Whose samples did you take first and then compare everyone to? Because if you assume someone is who they say they are and you start with their group, then you're measuring people to their group and who they are connected to, who they share similar DNA structures with, assuming that they are who they say they are like he was bringing up about the Ashkenazis, right? So I would say yes, if everything could be 100% sure. I'm not 100% convinced by this DNA stuff by a long shot. It's a science, and I believe that there are flaws in the science, and I believe that they will find more. And what I'm going to hopefully do tonight, I'm going to get geneticists, nephrologists, and such, people with PhDs, the people who are experts in this stuff. Zadok ben Israel nor LARON G-Konsciousness can claim to be experts in this. We haven't gone in those schools. We haven't taken no tests. We haven't invested in the books and sat under the professors and been in the labs and looked at what they're trying to, at what they're trying to use to determine these things. I won't knock their studies, but their studies are a very young science, and so I don't want them to, I'm careful that it's possible that 20 years from now they could tell the world Pluto isn't a planet. You feel me? and for those of you who know what I'm getting at, basically science can make a determination. They can teach it as gospel for decades and then turn around and discover something new and different, and they'll just throw their stuff out. And people who they taught for 50 years that there were 9 planets in the solar system and Pluto was the 9th, now your kids in this generation are learning there's only 8 planets, okay? So science has a room for error if people want us to believe that there's a possible error in how we're looking at the scriptures. There's a possible error in science as well. Now, with that being said, I'm not the person that believes that there is a Hebrew Israelite, all 12 tribes database that can prove it is using the DNA structure from Jacob's 12 sons. I'm not convinced of that. And with that being said, I want to quote everyone something right quick. I'm going to go right quick to this article that I had. And for some of you who may have been listening to our blog talk, the Knesset of Jesus, we had a blog talk radio show that went on for about 3 years from 2012 to 2013. Some of you may have heard me deal with some of this back in 2013 in a teaching that I did on DNA. So I'm not new to this, just for the record, but I want to share some stuff with you. This is out of an article, everybody, that you can find in the U.S. National Library of Medicine, National Institute of Health journal listings. And this is an article that was published online. The article is from 2014, but they published it online January 21st, 2015. So this article is from 3 years ago, and it is titled, it was submitted to the Journal of Frontiers in Genetics, and it was under the title, Genetic Markers Cannot Determine Jewish Descent, and it is by Raphael Falk. I'm going to give you his credentials. Raphael Falk is out of Department of Genetics and Program for History and Philosophy of Science at the Hebrew University of Jerusalem. Now, this particular article he wrote, it was edited by, I think, the gentleman that the brother just brought up, Aaron El Hayek, I believe, from the University of Sheffield in the UK. But it was also peer-reviewed by Yulia Igorova from Durham University in the UK and Veronica Liphart from Free University in Berlin, Germany, okay? And Raphael Falk is a well-known correspondent for the History and Philosophy of Science Department at Hebrew University of Jerusalem. So I'm just going to read this part of this article here, and I want y'all to listen to this. It says, who is a Jew? An ongoing dispute is, are the Jews a religious community, a socio-cultural entity, an ethnic biological classification, or what? The discordance is wide and has affected also Israel's courtrooms. The leading article of the Israeli daily Haaretz of Friday, October 4th, 2013 says, the defeat of Israeli ship. This is the quote. The refusal of the Supreme Court to accept the plea of 21 citizens, most of them well-known veterans of movements of civil rights, to recognize them as belonging to any Israeli nation is another expression of the failure of the civil struggle for the image of Israel. So after 65 years of supposedly Israel being back home, they are still struggling to identify in the government even. How do you determine who is of Israel and who is it? Continues. Now, this is out of the Haaretz. the Israeli daily paper. It's like a Wall Street Journal over there. 65 years after its establishment, the authorities do not recognize an Israeli nation, disconnected of a religious definition or ethnic belonging. So people are coming to the land claiming to be Jews by religion, and some are coming to the land claiming to have ethnic ties. In their decision, the judges deny the existence of an Israeli nation and assert that it has not been proven that an Israeli nationality disconnected of a religious definition or ethnic belonging exists. So the reason why I'm reading this is not because I'm just taking everything that everyone says is gospel, but most people will take the Zionist descendants and the European proselytes and others who are in the land in control ever since the Balfour Declaration split up that land during World War I, and after World War II was fought, they actually put the plan in motion that had been on the table for 20, 30 years already, and they put a lot of quote-unquote Jewish people over there. Now, the Israeli Supreme Court has to be honest. All of these people who initially went, we ain't talking about no Ethiopians, no Falashas, no Ashantis, nothing like that. Just the people who originally were set up by Europe and the United States as being the Israel Knesset and Israel is home. From the beginning, it wasn't sure who was ethnic and who was religious. But I'm going to read you this. 15 years earlier, in 1998, journalist Michael Shazar interviewed two retired Israeli Supreme Court judges asking who is a Jew. Judge Haim Cohen responded, the definition must be given by every single Jew for himself. If a person says of himself that he is a Jew, for me, he is a Jew. This is his autonomy, and nobody can decide for him or instead of him whether he is a Jew or not. There is no need in definitions. And just let me finish this, Al. It's short. Retired Judge Menahem Alan emphatically contests this argument. He relies on the decision of the Knesset concerning the law of return. The definition of the concept Jew in this context is he who was born to a Jewish mother or converted and does not belong to another religion. This is the lawful definition in the state of Israel, and in my view, this law is most essential. Otherwise, we have no Jewish nation. Notice that the government today does not follow Torah protocols in determining who is a Jew. So even when we start to talk about this, know this: as LARON and I sit and talk tonight, the Israeli government to this day and the people who run the country still don't have the answer 100%. I yield. Thanks.
All right, family. Once again, it's Debate Talk Radio. If you just tuned in, today's show is entitled DNA Testing Evidence of Hebrew Identity. That number to call in is 319-527-6239. If you're listening on social media, just click on the link and enjoy the show on Blog Talk Radio or right there on Facebook and, spread the news. People that Debate Talk on the air. All right, so let's get this dialogue started, guys. What I'm going to do is open up your phone lines, and we'll press number 1 already. So we're going to include the audience periodically, or guys, whenever you're ready, just let me know. Sal, is there anybody on the phone lines? And we'll go to the phone lines as requested. All right, so let me open up your phone lines, gentlemen. You can begin a dialogue.
All right. Hey, what up, G-Kon? G-Kon, unmute your mic, bro.
Hey, G-Kon, you there?
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
You guys hear me? All right, cool.
Yeah.
What's going on, brother?
What up, bro? I'm cooling, man. Hey, I wanted to finish something that I was reading in that article. And it was just the judge who actually was asked the question. They had him on the radio in Israel, right? And it says in a later radio interview, Justice Cohen said Judaism is a matter of religion for one and for culture for another. I completely ignore the genes and biology. I respect the spirit that I received from my parents and from my parents' parents. Now, this is very interesting, right? Because it goes next. It says, in a recent book called Jews and Words, the Israeli author Amos Oz and his daughter Fania Oz Salzberger insisted that it has been the Hebrew language that formed the thread which kept Jews together across generations. Jewish continuity has always hinged on uttered and written words. Ours is not a bloodline. but a text line. And then one more quote. The author of the recent book, The Myth of the Jewish Race, a biologist's point of view, Alain F. Korkos and his family managed to escape in time from the jaws of the pro-Nazi, anti-Semitic Vichy regime in southern France in 1944. Following a detailed analysis of the history of the Jews and Jew hatred, the author summarized, many Jewish and non-Jewish writers find it difficult to accept the idea that Judaism is simply a religion and that Jews who abandon the faith are no longer considered Jews. So the reason why I'm bringing this up, right, is because when we get into the genes and we get into the genetics of the matter, which is it's a science that's younger than the article that I just read, right? So the point that I want to make, and I want to hear how you would respond to it. My argument is just as much as I think it's impossible for every black person walking through the ghettos of America to take a DNA test that proves that they're somehow Israelites, because I'm questioning the beginning of the gene pool, or the material used to create the first beginnings of the gene pool. They are finding the same difficulties over in Israel. And that judge was interesting because he's passed laws in this land for 3 decades as a Supreme Court justice being considered a Jew. And he says, look, man, the genes and the biology at the end of the day ain't going to matter for me, because the spirit my parents put in me is going to always make me a Jew. So what that means is, what if he took a DNA test and found out he was more Polish than anything? For him, he's saying, I don't care what the DNA test say. Couldn't no one tell me that the life I've dedicated to this nation and this people and to Torah and to the laws of the land, I'm not a Jew. So it's either going to be ethnobiology or it's going to be culture-wise. And so do you believe that people who may claim an ethnobiological Jewishness or Hebrewism or whatever are more valid than those who would claim it by culture?
No, actually, I believe that, what a Jew is we know what it is in the scripture when it says a Jew is somebody that is circumcised in heart, especially in regards to where you're dealing with a natural Jew, one that is born from Abraham. So, so I agree to that when you start talking about that, and I understand the judge's position on that, because his position is that we shouldn't look genetically to see who is a Jew or who is not a Jew, because when you look at the Torah, it doesn't use that. A person that is a Jew or practicing the Jew religion is a person that is spiritual, if anything, and lines up according to what this book is saying, and is in fellowship with Christ. And so when you look at when you look at, like, for instance, you can be a Jew, or I'm gonna say you can be an Israelite but not a Christian, because a Christian is one that follows Christ. And so we know that, you can be an Israelite by blood but not actually a Christian. And so it's the same thing with dealing with this is you can be a Jew in the Jew religion, following the cultural aspect, be saved, and all of those things are those that are, are some of those that are not even, don't even believe in Christ, or whether they, will in the future or they don't now. So my thing is that I definitely agree that, it's not really based upon what your race is genetically. But when you have people that are going around saying that those Jews are not the real Jews, as far as bloodline, they have no genetic ties to the Middle East, or when you talk about the other Jews that are in other places, as far as the Sephardic, also the Mizraim and the Moroccan Jews, and these other Jews, the Sumerian Jews, the Babylonian Jews, they never came back to the land. And so when you got people that's going around this in America, that's making this out of an issue, saying that we're the blood Jews, and they don't understand, that you can be defeated on the level of dealing with spirituality, as well as as well as bloodline, as well as genetically. Because if you want to get into a genetics, then we see that there is no ties, that come with that. With the majority of Americans is here in America today. There's African Americans. So that's my whole standpoint. So I agree with the judge because it's really not based off of that at all. But when you got people that's being betrayed, that's perpetrating in this land, you got all these people that's coming in this land with bombs and stuff like that. These people are trying to make a difference between them and the other people. And if they're going to use genetics to do that and enhance that science or try to, use that science to help out, I think that's a great determining factor to be trying to use actually, because it's getting to the point to where they do want to build a border and to where people can know that, hey, look, this is us over here, and I'm pretty sure the Bible actually say that's going to happen, and whoever joins with them. But how do they know who's really actually with them? Because we see now people are saying that they're Jews just to get some type of compensation or some type of some type of support, trying to get some type of support. So that's how I would answer that, is that we know that that's not really the importance of it. To be honest, people are making that very important. So this is why they are using the science to show people that, hey, we should genetically share something with each other if you're saying that you're this. Whether it's distance or close up, we should share something.
Okay. Now that I could now see, I can dig that, and to a degree. Christ said that the measure that you meet a matter, it shall be met back to you, I believe. So for those who would come around and say, well, we are definitely this and that's that, well, you do know there's going to be an army on the other side saying, prove it then. If you saying we not and you are, then we saying we are and you're not then. And let's see who has the ammo to win the battle. That's just going to happen. People are going to call in tonight. Some people are going to come at you. They're going to come at me. And that's fine. It's going to be a whole bunch of non-expert hood scholars who read books just like me and you do, bro. You know what I'm saying? Who are coming to these unequivocal, undeniable, unturnable, you wrong, I'm right conclusions. So my thing is this. Now, I am suspect of the DNA pool and how it started. Now, what I want to do is this. I'm going to read a brief paragraph out of an article by a South African geneticist and pathologist, right? And it is Dr. H. Subiyal, and I believe this is a female doctor, but this is a South African doctor who is from the Division of Human Genetics in the School of Pathology, the Faculty of Health Sciences at the University of Witwatersrand and National Health Laboratory Service of Johannesburg, South Africa. She has a PhD, an MSc, and a BSc. So she's a highly, and hopefully I'm not getting her wrong. It could be a male. I'll just say that this geneticist and pathologist is a highly decorated South African geneticist. And the conclusion they have is, they say, while it was not possible to trace unequivocally the origins of the non-African Y chromosomes in the limba and rimba, this study does not support the earlier claims of their Jewish genetic heritage. So you have people in South Africa who are geneticists who are challenging the genetics of European Jewish geneticists and American geneticists. Who's right, who's wrong when they all carrying around? A lot of us put stock in the certificate on the wall. So this person who got 3 certificates, what makes them more wrong or right? And this study is on CMH and J haplotype and the limba-rimba people. I'm not going to read the whole article. I just want to read this one part. This geneticist talks about the beginning of the Cohen modal haplotype Y. It says, the doctor says, the origins of the codomodal haplotype Y chromosome research. Dr. Karl Skorecki, A Kohen of Eastern European parents was attending synagogue one morning. The Kohen called up for the Torah reading that morning was the Kohen who was called up for Torah reading that morning was a Jew of Sephardic background. So you got Dr. Karl Skorecki, he's supposed to be from the from Aaron's line. He has Eastern European parents, and at this Torah reading on the Sabbath in Israel, there's a Sephardic Jew who's standing up to read the Torah. And it says this Sephardic Jew parents were born in North Africa. Dr. Skorecki looked at the Sephardic Kohen's physical features and considered his own. They were significantly different in stature, skin color, hair, and eye color, yet both had a tradition of being Kohanim, direct descendants of one man, Aaron, a brother of Moses, right? So it says the Kohanim are supposed to, they're supposed to be able to trace themselves back to Aaron and stuff by tradition. Ain't no DNA test yet, but by tradition, this is the claim. Jewish tradition based on the Torah is that all Kohanim are direct descendants of Aaron, the brother of Moses. The Kohen line is patrilineal, passed from father to son without interruption 300 years or more than 100 generations. Now, that's the claim, not the proof, but the claim. Dr. Skorecki considered, according to tradition, this Sephardi Kohen and I have a common ancestor. Could this line have been maintained since Sinai and throughout the long exile of the Jewish people? And as a scientist, he wondered, could such a claim be tested? Being a nephrologist and a top-level researcher at the University of Toronto and the Rambam Technion Medical Center in Haifa, he was involved in the breakthroughs in molecular genetics, which are revolutionizing medicine and the study of life sciences. He was also aware of the newly developing application of DNA analysis to the study of history and population diversity. The reason that I say this is because the original Model J type was started by swabs from Skorecki, the rabbis in his temple, and others there. That is the beginning of the J haplogroup testing. So whatever they have in them is already being claimed to be original by tradition. So when they go out into the world and test others, how does the DNA database for the J haplogroup, at least to determine if you are Kohen or not, how do it get to start with them and the world just like, oh yeah, that's what, yep. I have an issue with that because I believe if the roles were reversed, and let's say that would have happened in Benin, where there was in ancient Dahomey land, where there's a rich tradition of people over there who claim to be Israel, and they've claimed it unbroken for millennia. If the same thing would have been done there, and it would have started with them having some E1B1 traits in them, and now you got these guys, Skorecki and them in Israel, their J modal haplogroup would have taken them out of consideration for being Kohanim if the tradition would have been different coming from another place. So what I'm saying is that we can't 100% just trust the science. I don't think it's and whoever disagrees with me, that's fine. And I'll end it with this, LARON. I don't trust that all three major that started the science, all three major DNA databases are all owned by Zionist Jews, multimillionaires. They own Google. They own some of the biggest stuff on earth, and they're holding the DNA databases. And this young, almost 2 decades old science is almost being talked about as if, well, if you don't believe in that science, or if you don't believe in all their findings as being concrete but still being youthful in its inception, then somehow you the one off the rocker. You got this African geneticist and nephrologist who doesn't agree that just because there's a Y chromosome amongst the limba, that they're the same as those who may have some trace of Y chromosome in them. I'm sorry, the JY chromosome in them over in the Middle East. What do you think about that when the PhDs get to disagreeing?
Right, but one thing that you fail to realize is that we all agree that the J haplogroup or J1C3 is a subclad of JP209, which originates out of Asia. So I guarantee you that person with a PhD would not reject that haplogroup or that mutation upon that SNP it came up out of Asia. They wouldn't reject that. And so when we look at it, we can see that even though you look at these Kohen or these people that call them priests culturally, we can see the migration of those limbas coming out of Yemen, because we know that haplogroup that you're talking about, which is that J haplogroup, did not come from those Jews. In other words, it predates them. And so that haplogroup, that subclad, actually comes from JP209 of those people that's in West Asia, and we actually, see a lot of that group that's up there. So when you look at it, we see the J1.
Cool. That's cool. I could dig that.
Right. So it's really about the migration. And so when you say E, right? When you said E, the majority of E haplogroups are E. Let's say EV38, which comes out of South Africa. That started in South Africa or the Horn of Africa. We can see that it has subclass, which is EM2, which is what I am. I'm EM2, which is a part of E1B1A. And so when we look at it, there's like around, I want to say, so many subclasses of E that's in Africa. That's how we know that it started in Africa, because that mutation took place in Africa. Now, when you look at that marker, the J marker, when you look at J1C3, that marker right there is something that the limbas share with the Kohen and also, the Ashkenazis and also the Sephardic Jews. So there's something that's genetically tied there. But if you want to say that, okay, well, because they have this marker, that doesn't mean anything, there's possibly not a tie there with a close tie, but there's a distant tie there, we still can say the migration is definitely there. You're not going to see J markers, too many J markers in West Africa. You know what I'm saying? You're going to see the majority of J markers.
Yeah, that's fine. Now, my thing is this. That's fine. My thing is that I don't think there's proof that the J marker proves one ancestor, especially if you got twins. How do you know that? How do you know that the J marker, put it like this, if the J marker is supposedly identifying Aaron, then how would you identify Moses' son? Because they wouldn't be the same. The J marker is supposed to be.
I wouldn't say that it's identify Aaron. I'm not saying it's identifying Aaron. I'm saying it's showing that there is a genetic connection, a close connection between these two people that have a cultural tie of saying that they are a Jew priest, and then these are culturally saying that they are Sephardic priests, and these also of the Ashkenazi are culturally saying that they are just as well priests just as well, or Kohen just as well. So there's a tie.
That's cool. That's cool. I could dig that.
When they did the genetic studying, they realized that there is something genetic that is there, traced among them. Now, on the maternal side,
but not everyone, but not necessarily everyone who calls themselves Kohanim, because some of the Kohanim didn't even show that marker in any kind of strength at all. But they did find it among the group. Just to be clear, it wasn't like every single male called a Kohanim had that gene.
That's why I was saying. That's why I was saying.
So now are they Kohanim or not? You understand what I'm saying?
That's why I was saying. Right.
When the tradition runs into genetics, there's always going to be this fight. And I understand that even though men of the earth just trust in the newest sciences and everything so much, I trust the wisdom of God further. That says even though you can read genealogies and even though these scientists with their gadgets and stuff trying to explain the Most High's work, they trying, but I'm going to err on the side of the apostles whose doctrine I follow that says, do not find yourselves in endless debates about genealogy because they don't lead to the purpose that the Most High has. So you and I are not endlessly debating here. Me and you talked about this once before, like just me and you. We kicked it, and then boom, we was like, yo, let's go on Sal's show and talk about it. But this ain't something to overly get caught up in, because what happens is this. You're going to have those who are going to come to the table, and their trust is in the science to the point that they don't care about nothing what the Bible says. My thing is the J marker you can't prove the J marker come from Aaron, right? Now, the thing is this. What's so interesting is if everyone who claims to be of Levi, right, doesn't have the J marker, then what is Levi's marker and what is Aaron's marker versus his brother Moses? Would Gershom, Merari, and Kohath also have the same markers? I think that they would, right? And Aaron and his sons being set aside, the thing about Aaron and his sons is they come out of the Levitical tribe. It's just that brother was set aside, but his other brothers in them are still priests. So that's why I believe that the whole argument to use it, I think the judges was right. I just went in that circle to go back to the judges. I'm seeing where the judges and even the rabbis, it's rabbis who are quoting the same thing, because at the end of the day, some of them could wind up through genetics not matching some genetic expectation, and they're like, okay, so if some scientists say, well, you don't, Wait, say that again?
They actually do. There is some of them that don't line up genetically, and they've admitted that. They said that, and that's why. Right. So, but they would still be considered Israel, quote unquote, or Israeli or Jew by the world at large. And so, if that is the case, then that is allotted in the eyes of the supreme justices. Hey, if it's ethno or cultural, if you don't deal with Torah and you think the laws of God are something to be tossed to the side, then we don't care what you genetically got. You're not a Jew. So I think they're confirming what you were saying at the beginning. At the end of the day, what God was doing was creating, he started a covenant with a nation and was slowly entering into a covenant with the rest of those in the earth whose hearts he deemed to be fit for his use. And that's coming out of all nations. But this is even before Jesus. We ain't even got to go to the New Testament, and we could prove easily through the Old Testament that anyone today who would claim to be a Hebrew Israelite wouldn't know the difference if they seen a Hebrew Israelite from a stranger who'd been amalgamated into the nation over the years. And I believe I could easily prove that from the Old Testament. Easy. But yeah, right. I definitely, there's no disagreement there, but we definitely need to look at taking consideration when people are saying otherwise, when they want to go and say, well, these people are not tied here, they're not tied there. They might say, well, they're not following the law. Well, the Bible actually says that he's going to turn ungodliness away from Israel because they've been blinded in part. So they would be doing wicked things and deceiving the world. They was doing it in the before they was dispersed in the Old Testament. They was worse than the nations that was round about them, the book says in Ezekiel and Jeremiah. So they've been doing wicked things, and they led the nations with their wickedness. So when we look at the same situation now, it's no different now. And so when people want to argue genetically, right, and they want to say, well, we're the blood Israelites, right? When they say they the blood Israelites, then you're gonna have to pull out some type of DNA information or something, because now you give people leeway to say you tripping. You know what I'm saying? And let's really see what's going on, because whether we like it or not, we know when me and you go to the hospital, we deal with forensic science. Even though it's not a perfect science, but when you get sick, you're taking your child to the hospital. And part of knowing your genomes to
to map out your body is how they're able to heal or bring forth certain remedies, even though they have side effects, to at least give you something to help you out. You know what I'm saying? To take away the pain, because they realize that there's certain proteins, there's certain acids, there's certain things that's there. If we mix this up with that, or we mix this up with that, then we can do this. And so they have some type of science for that. So my thing is this: is that when we're talking about migration patterns, we can look at the migration of those people that culturally are saying that they're Israel, that are from the Buba tribe, right? And then we can see the genetics of it. We can look at those people that are Mizraim Jews. Some of them carry E1B1B1B. We can look at those people in North Africa. We can look at the Sephardic people, Ashkenazis, the Moroccan Jews, the Jews from Elam, or the Babylonian Jews that came back, some of them in 1948, and actually do studies on them and say they do have some genetic ties. The Mountain Jews, these are Jews that Josephus said that the majority of the Jews was over in the east, never came back. So how is it that we have 1 million Jews that Josephus talk about that come down into Egypt, right? And we know they came and they was mining. Everybody just talk about them. They never talk about the Jews that was in America that never came back.
Point. That's a great point. Just to interrupt, the Bible says that only about 40,000 or so even left the 127 provinces of the Persian Empire and went back for the rebuild. The majority of just those from Judah, Benjamin, and Levi never came back. They didn't want to go back and rebuild the burnt-out city. The Bible confirms that. That's why there's a Babylonian Talmud and such and such and such and such. Yeah, keep going, bro.
And I definitely you own it. I definitely agree. And like I say, me and you both agree is that I don't care whether you a Jew, you rabbi this or rabbi that. If you are not in Christ, you out of here. You ain't nothing popping at all. I agree to that.
Okay.
That's definitely that's.
No. That right there, I think is profound and important. And it's something I want to share a scripture, and then depending on where you want to go, LARON, we can have Sal open the phone, because we've been talking for roughly about 30 minutes. And I know it's people who might want to chime in here and they might want to chop our heads or even shake our hands. I don't know. But I want to go to the scripture right quick. Let's go to the Bible right quick. And I want to point out something. Let's say, because I'm using a hypothetical here, let's say we could prove who Abraham was historically, and they could have a sample of his bones, right, and look at his genetic code, right? Let's say that. I want to show something that has to be taken into consideration, because you have those talking about tracing a certain haplogroup all the way back to Abraham. I'm pretty sure you've read some of these articles, whether you agree with them or not. You feel me? I want to read this right quick. I heard that line, so Sal want to get on the phone. Just let me read this text, Sal. This is the book of Genesis. Where we at? Oh, here we go. Oh, no, that's not it. Hold on. It's important to get this text out because I needed to frame the question in case somebody wants to challenge the idea here. Oh, okay, boom. Here it goes. Genesis 25. In the book of Genesis, chapter 25, after Mother Sarah dies, it says, then again, Abraham took a wife, and her name was Keturah. And she bare him Zimran and Jokshan and Medan and Midian and Ishbak and Shua, right? So Abraham has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 sons by his second wife. That gives him 8 sons of his flesh in total. We know that it's more than likely that all of them would have carried some culture of Abraham being raised under him, right? And they all would have been circumcised in their flesh. Them 6 boys would have been circumcised on their 8th day like Isaac was. Ishmael was the only one who wasn't circumcised in his foreskin. meaning they would have carried that culture to their respective people. Now, whatever Abraham's haplogroup is, how could someone claiming to be from Isaac's bloodline deny that the sons of Ishmael would carry a similar haplogroup? Zimran, Jokshan, Midian, Ishbak, and Shua. So even when Moses married Zipporah, the Midianite daughter of Jethro, the high priest of Midian, Jethro and Moses would have shared a similar haplogroup, being direct descendants of Abraham. So in me saying that, do you see already the problem just in tracing Israel to Abraham? But what if you a Midianite? You would carry a similar haplogroup because y'all all come from the same father. Y'all all would have the same patrilineal marker on y'all DNA code. I just want to point that out. So when you get into this from the beginning, God is muddying the waters. I'm not muddying the waters. God is. I just wanted to say that for the record. Go ahead, Sal.
And they.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, G-Kon. And after that, I'm gonna go to the phone lines. Go ahead, G-Kon.
Yeah, and actually, the Midianites actually does carry that same. When you start looking at the people that's in from that area, they come also from that area where Yemen is at too, just as well. They carry the same markers. We start looking at those Jordanians and Midianites, are mainly they come Jordanians or Jordan today. Those people carry the same markers as as the Sephardic and also the other Jews around the world. A lot of them are very heavily when it comes to that the J marker in that area. And when you look at also, I think Ishmael was circumcised, wasn't he? I believe Ishmael was circumcised.
Yeah.
I think he was.
Yep. He was circumcised first.
Yeah, he was the first one circumcised. And so when you look at those kids that came by Keturah later on, a lot of those people that we see up in the north carry E1B1B. You see some Egyptians, they also have E1B1A, but a lot of those people are heavily with E1B1B in that area because that guy, E1B1B, is spread almost everywhere, almost more so in the Levant more than you see E1B1A. E1B1A is like from 3 to 15%, and then 3 to 7% within Ashkenazi groups that's in that area and Sephardics. But for the most part, it's a low source of E1B1A within that area. And so I just want to say that the majority of people that come from West Africa are EM2, or they might come, some might EV38, or some of them might have Americans that come over to America. America might be R1B, which comes from West Asia, with some of the Jews also, West Europe, with some of the Jews also have R1B because they come up out of, some of them went to West Europe and picked up those markers, especially on their on some of those things on the maternal side, I believe. Some of those autosomal DNA. I just wanted to bring out that. Go ahead, Sal.
All right, family, it's time to go to the phone lines. That number to call in is 319-527-6239. If it's first time calling in, when you call in, you got to keep it clean, family. Keep it professional. Let's go to the phone lines. Let's see what you guys got to say about this topic. Is DNA testing evidence of Hebrew identity? Let's go to a Skype caller. You're live on air.
Shalom, Sal. This is Anonymous Hebrew. Hold on one second, man. I got my son. Hold on. Baby Jude. Sorry about that. Shalom, Zadok. G-Kon, how y'all doing?
All right.
Peace, right?
First off, y'all, it's good to hear y'all brothers talking. I really follow a lot of what y'all do, so just thank y'all for what y'all doing in the community, and just keep up the good work. Second, this is I'm going to school right now, and I'm working on my master's to find the genetic connection with psychology. And so a lot of what you guys are talking about ties into what I'm working on with my thesis. And so Zadok brought out a lot of articles on a lot of people that are really kind of at the cutting edge of what's going on right now. So the first thing I'll talk about is kind of like the J haplogroup. There's a lot of controversy, especially with the person Aaron Elheck, who was the one that edited the article by Falk. A lot of his work is proving that J haplogroup actually originates in Turkey. So I know G-Kon has said that it originated kind of like in Asia, but it's actually like more northern, like Northeast Asia or Northwest Asia, not just strictly like Southwest Asia, but it's more like Northwest, even further going into the Turkey area. That's what the genetics is starting to show. Also, I agree with what you guys are saying about the Ashkenazi kind of being split, where some of them are, they do have that J haplogroup, but then a lot of them actually admit that they're converts, right? So we see that. But to me, it's kind of hard because that E1B1A, like when I do my DNA, like G-Kon was talking about M2, mine is M180, right? So this is another subclade of M2, which actually comes from EV38. If you do all that research, you find out. And if you start looking at all of this, like if you get a 23andMe DNA printout or whatever, and if you really look at the DNA, there's so many different mutations. So a lot of what you guys are saying is really, it's hard to really just pinpoint some of these things. But that E1B1A does seem to come from what they would call the Middle East, but what we know, I guess, to be Northeast Africa. If you really study some work of this guy called Trombetta, like a lot of what he found out is that a lot of that does come from that what we call the Middle East area right now. So I think eventually we will find that there is some connection between a lot of us, and I don't think it's going to be that J group, because the other point that Zadok brought out was that the sample group, we don't really know that sample group. It would be really great if we could get a sample group of, say, like the Afro-Asiatic bones from Avaris, because they would really kind of tell us a story, and it may even link up to ours. But the final point that I wanted to get into, and this kind of goes into what both of y'all was talking about when it comes to Christ, is if we study what's called epigenetics, and I don't know how familiar you guys are with this, but, epi being above, genetics being basically heredity. What you find out now with geomolecular scientist by the name of Bill Lipton, a lot of what his work is showing is that the cell is actually influenced not by the nucleus, but by the skin and by the senses. And this ties a lot into what Jesus was saying when he was saying, if you were of Abraham your father, you would do the works of Abraham. What we find out with epigenetics is your beliefs are what ultimately, your beliefs and what you do, the things you eat, the type of lifestyle that you keep, is ultimately what dictates how your cells will respond. It won't change your overall genome, but it causes different mutations in the cell where it can activate and deactivate things like cancer. It even goes so far as to dictate the mental makeup, right? It can give you mental disorders as well as deactivate mental disorders. And this is why I think the Torah is so important, because by changing our beliefs and changing the things that we once did, i.e. changing our diet or changing how we view our brothers, how we treat people, how we operate in everyday life, these things get passed down from generation to generation, right? And while you may have a person who is inherently violent, if he learns to change his mentality through Torah, that seed will then pass down to his son, and that son, that violent gene will now be dormant, right? So, and this is all pure research. I can give you guys my email and we can exchange some articles. But ultimately, what science is starting to do is really starting to prove a lot of the things that we can see happening and being taught in the Bible. But just finally, I agree with you guys on a lot of what you were saying. I do ultimately think that we will be able to trace that E1B1A to some of those ancient Jews, or what we call Israelites. But that's just my personal thought, and there's a lot of things we'd have to go really deep in there, and I can show you why. But I appreciate what y'all doing, and that's all I really got.
Most definitely.
Let's go to G-Kon. You want to respond, G-Kon? Go ahead.
Yeah, I think that for the most part, as I stated earlier, the J haplogroup does not, its origin is not with the Jews. It just so happened that they have that haplogroup, and so when you look at where I come from, and then J arises, and these mutations arise, and after that, you know, J1C3 is a subclad of JP209, which originates in West Asia, which that's what Turkey is. Turkey is West Asia, and so when we look at it, when you look at Israel, we just talking about the migrations here. We can look at these letters and actually say, well, this is where this person migrated, and this is where the origin of this at, because the majority of this haplogroup or subclad is in this area, and we can actually see that this mutation carried itself and linked up with these people that was down in Arabia, that was in the Middle East, and then they came with J1 and all types of other J's, just as well as J2, because these are other mutations that comes from that the subclass mixing with each other, but the origin of it is JP209, which come up out of I. And so when we look at the origin of where these mutations is occurring at, it has to do with the environment, mainly sex selection, or also their diet, so to speak. And so what I'm saying is that when we look at those people that are in Africa, when we look at Israel alone, we can look at their migrations. We can look at it genetically, culturally, linguistically. So typically we can actually see the migrations of these people, and then we do a comparative study of all these things, put these things together, and actually come up with something and say, you know what, there is a connection here. Whether it's genetically, biblically, culturally, linguistically,
I agree.
We can see those things. And so when we look at where Israel came from, they would have said they came up out of Syria, out of that area, because remember Jacob sent Laban up there with, and then to be honest, a lot of the J that we see come from a lot of those women up there. And so he took on Laban's daughters. And so when we look at it, we can see that there is a mixture, as a report that I've seen, an abstract that I've seen, of 3 to 7% of E1B1A within those Middle Easterns that we see there. And then we start looking at the people that's in those areas overall. We see a 3 to 15%, but it's not a lot. And so that lets you know there was a flow outside of Africa that went into that area around the 800, 700 period. But it's not coming the opposite way. It's going out into that area of that admixture. And we can see that scripturally actually happening just as well. So the only thing I'm saying is these are migrational patterns of our molecular clock that we have, our molecular biological clock that we have in us. And I'm not saying that it's absolute, but to say that E1B1A is like most of these guys are going around saying that this is the marker that the Israelites carry is just too far-fetched, because that E1B1A mainly doesn't even barely make it out of migrate outside of Africa. The majority of it is in Africa, and when it does, it doesn't have the other migrations that we see that would have been where Israel was taken into captivity at. When we look at the J, we can see that these people, look at the different cultures around the world that's been in those areas. They have these markers, J1, J2, the Cohen marker, J1C3. All of these markers are R1B, E1B1B, North Africa, and then we see that they've been to these actual places. J1 is all the way in Europe. So we can see that there was a migration out of West Asia that went all the way to Europe, but it's a small percentage, but it's still there, and we can see it there.
The only thing, I'm sorry to cut you off, the only thing I would kind of disagree is when you say the E1B1A does not show up that far out of West Africa. Like I'm E1B1A1A1, right, which is a subclade.
And you see that specifically in the region where Israel is today, right? And like I said, I can give you the studies of that shows. Now the numbers, like you said, the numbers are nowhere near as high as they are in West Africa, but you do see them. You see them in the area. You don't see them as far north as in Europe. And so that was my point. Is it seems right now, like this is a very young science, especially like this epigenetic thing. This is the last 10 years, maybe even less. But it seems right now that the origin of a lot of that it does come more from the Caucasus area. I'm not trying to go to the Khazarian theory, but it does seem as though right now that the science is starting to lean more and prove that, and there's a real big effort to kind of bury a lot of that work. So, but I do agree that it's all intermingled. But I agree with that.
It would come from the Caucasus area because it's a melting pot. How many nations? And see, that's how we know that E1B1A did not migrate up that far due to the fact of the low percentage there. But we see the high percentage of those markers, I, J, K. We see also markers that come after that that's in those areas because it's a melting pot. And so when we look at the Khazarian theory, you got to understand, before 700 A.D. in that area, Jews was already in that area because you got to understand what took place during the Assyrian kingdom, Parthian kingdom, because remember in Jesus' time, in Acts, and after Acts, the first century, we see, and in Acts, in the first century, we see that there was Parthian Jews, a Parthian empire, the Scythian empire. So these are all areas to where Jews was actually in those places before there was even a Khazarian even. And so we got to understand that when you look at the Khazarian theory within itself, it bears no weight because just as Aaron Elhack, when he came up with that article, the same thing happens, but there's more proof that ties in on the sides of cultures that are saying that there are Jews than his argument, because his argument is this: there is no evidence to draw from no early Israelites. Well, hold on for a minute. You just went and took from a melting pot that was in the area of West Asia. You went and took from a melting pot where people have been trampling over that area for centuries. And not only that is this, nobody's there calling themselves a Khazarian culturally, because we don't even have no history. But when you start seeing people that's actually calling themselves Jews culturally that are in Asia, that are in Africa, North Africa, that are in Europe, and we can tie those things back culturally and we do a test on them, they genetically tie back. So therefore, with his evidence that he has in the 13-tribe book that the brother came out with, the Jew that came out with, most scholars are rejecting it because it's not solid at all. Because you can't say I want to do a test on these people that don't call themselves. I'm sorry, go ahead, brother.
No. I wanted to jump in there. Skorecki, I think, is one, but also Harry Ostra, who's from the Yeshiva University school in New York, who is one of the leading voices right now in that field, who has done a lot of the articles over the last decade or more that's been constantly published in Israel. It's not that, and I want to make this point just so that cats can know, the historicity of the 13th tribe book is not in question. It's the result or the claim from Kessler that all Ashkenazi are descendants of the Khazar. Ostra and them say through their research, they believe that you can only prove that about 20% of modern Ashkenazi could be from the region that the Khazar are from, but the other 80% do not come out of that particular region. So I just want to say the historicity, everything that he quotes from Ibn Abdullah and them, the Muslim travelers and scribes from the Muslim Caliphate who were visiting, King Bulan and all of them at the same time that the Byzantines were sending their people there, trying to get a foothold on the aristocracy in the court there. Their conversion to Judaism was a socio-political one and a strategic one, and I think it kind of let them last longer than they would have if they would have took either side. The history is accurate, but his conclusion that all Ashkenazi are of Khazarian descent, Ashkenazim do at least put a fifth, which is about 20% of Ashkenazi out of Khazar. And I got the studies. I got like 7 articles here.
And I think I seen that article that you're talking about, and I think was it in 2009 or something like that?
Yeah, one is from 2010, and then of course as they find out more, there's another article from 2012 that I got.
Right.
And they keep, huh? I'm sorry. Go ahead, LARON.
Go ahead, brother. I'm sorry.
Another point that I wanted to make was the migration patterns. Sometimes there isn't necessarily a history that's told like by books, but through genetics, they're trying to trace where people groups are today. They aren't always taking into account where people groups were in mass in ancient times. So I want to give you an example. Today, the E1B1 or EM, however y'all say that one, the one that most people put on Africans from sub-Saharan Africa going all the way down into South Africa. If we believe the Bible, and if people want to point out that those people in Africa today, the majority of them are the descendants of Ham. The descendants of Ham, according to the Bible, would have at one time their haplogroup would have had to have dominated what today is the Middle East. Canaan, according to the Bible, had 7 separate small city-states or countries that developed, and the Pharaoh out of Mitzrayim ruled all the way up to the Tigris and Euphrates. And we got the big stele of Ramesses, who basically made a stele of himself sitting at the Tigris and Euphrates. He actually made a truce with the king of Babylon. Babylon wouldn't cross the Euphrates. Egypt wouldn't cross the Euphrates to them. They made a truce at the Euphrates, but Ramses went on this campaign all through Palestine. I'm arguing that the Canaanites, who are descendants of Ham, if DNA databases would have been compiled 3,500 years ago, it would be no doubt that the haplogroups that are today being said to, it's almost like these haplogroups, no one is really pinpointing that, hey, the E1 whatever or the E this, that, they actually dominated all the way up towards modern-day Iraq. But no one is saying it scientifically because the science is limited to where the people groups are today. And then when they read their genetic markers and they try to see, well, who got the majority of this genetic marker versus the minority of it, I believe that sometimes that their genetic tracing, trying to trace migration through genetics, still it makes the Bible alive then. So what I'm saying is that as believers, while on one hand we hold genetics in our hand, we have to take into account that today, that what the Sephardic Jew haplogroups have great numbers today in modern day Libya and Lebanon and Egypt, and then going into the Middle East and into Palestine and abroad. At a time, those haplogroups would have been very small. So when you look at what would be considered the dominant haplogroups in Western Africa today, Sub-Saharan Africa and down, and then over to the West, at one time, them haplogroups would have been the dominant haplogroup in Northern Africa. But today, they aren't. And so when people talk about where they were, you would have to call the Bible a lie to say that basically the continent of Africa from Sub-Sahara up and over into what is called Palestine to the Euphrates would have had it's just impossible if we're going to have to throw out the whole table of nations in Genesis 11 because the scripture tells us what land they settled. And the land that God brought the children of Israel out of in Mitzrayim, Ham's land, and brought them into Canaan and gave them and told them they would inherit from the Nile up until the Euphrates, they had to fight Canaan in order to take it. And even for us to talk today about Judah and Samaria, northern Israel, which is northern Palestine today, Ham's haplogroup would have dominated it. But genetic testing today will not trace the migration through genetics to be so. They won't say at one time they dominated that area. Right, so when they got other haplogroups dominating a certain area, you're going to have to say that, where you would find a minority of a haplogroup, and I'll finish it like this. Today, it seems to me they'll say, well, when we find, let's say like the J haplogroup, when you find it in light, wherever you find it in lighter traces, is not what you would call necessarily the original area that it came from. Because today, that particular marker, and remember when we talk, and I just want the audience to remember this, and both of you brothers can correct me if I'm wrong. We keep bringing up the J. I brought it up to talk about who's supposed to descend from Aaron. But if all Hebrews and if all Israelites aren't supposed to be from Aaron, then all Israelites, the J marker is not the identifying marker for all Israelites. Let's just say that. That is particularly a Kohanim gene. It is not describing the patrilineal haplogroup for all 12 tribes. It can't, because then they all would be Kohanim. I just want to point that out. So today, if you find the E marker, if that's what you want to call it, that haplogroup, if you find it in very light numbers today in the Middle East or in northern Africa or on the other side of the Sahara, it would seem to indicate that some people migrated there, but not that at one time that was the dominant haplogroup there. And do you understand the point that I'm making?
Right. And that's what I was saying. Like, we know that 3 to 15% of that haplogroup of some of the E1B1A has migrated from the people that's been tested in from sub-Saharan Africa, has came into those areas. We understand that. I don't have a problem with that. Well,
what I'm saying is, hold on. I just want to say, if you say what I think you're saying, my argument would be no. At one time, that haplogroup would have had to dominate the other side of the Sahara, was called Northern Africa. It would have had to dominate that if the children of Ham, according to the Bible, from the Tower of Babel, settled and built their empires there. That's not how that,
I understand that's not how that works, though, because how it works is this.
If that's not how it works, I want you to explain to me what you would understand.
All right, cool.
What would you understand hold on, LARON. If you're not, wait, hold on, listen, because you don't know the question I'm gonna ask. If you're saying I got to understand how it would have went, as you explain that, explain to me, and I don't know if the brother is still on the phone who had called in, maybe he's not.
I can bring him back on. I can bring him back on.
You bring him back in. What haplogroup would have? What haplogroup would, if the people in the Western? My thing is, I believe you would say that those in Western Africa and Sub-Saharan Africa are the children of Ham.
That's what I'm. No, listen, bro. That's what I'm telling you. You saying it. Listen, bro. If you notice, I always stated it's dealing with the environment, climate, and their diet. Culturally, the diversity that's in Africa is so diverse. This is why we have the majority of E subclass, because it's so diverse. Now, when you look at Ham, right? I'm not saying it's Ham, because we got Canaanites, as I just said, if you look at it, when it says the out of Africa mixture took place around 800 to 500. I think they said BC off an article that I read. It says that on there, it says that this happened. It says that there's 3 to 15%, but this is among, guess who? The Levant area. Guess who's there? Canaanites. So when you look at Canaanites, like for instance, when Norma went up into the north, he met Asiatics that was in the north, that was in Egypt. So when you look at it, it's not saying that I'm not saying that all Hamites are E1B1A. No, that's not what that's not what that's about.
Okay, cool.
Right.
Okay, cool. So I misunderstood you then. Okay, cool.
So where these people migrated at is where they picked up. Right, where the migration is at is where these people actually picked up these mutations. Whether if it's a Jew, whether if it's a son of Shem, Ham, or Japheth. If they was in those areas, they would have picked up those mutations in those areas, and culturally, from a cultural perspective, this as well too. Now, just to be honest, so we can notice, when you look at Herodotus say that Egypt was not Africa, Asia. And well, he didn't say that specifically, but he said that in other words, it was Asia on an ancient map that is actually Asia. And so when you start looking at Afri, or the people of Afri, that's Libya. So when you look at those areas of that's coming from that area, when Norma, which is a 3100 BC pharaoh, he came up and he had to encounter Asiatics. We know that because we see the pottery. And so you could be Afro-Asiatic. You could be on the continent of Africa.
I got you.
That was my point with Avaris too. Like that's my point with Avaris. Like that's pretty much the only real link that we know right now. That these are Afro-Asiatics, and we see the bones. We know that we got those bones. We know that we can see those bones right now. So we can study Avaris more. We may be able to get more information just on the migration pattern. My quick question, G-Kon, are you saying that E1B1A originates in West Africa, or that's the migration into West Africa? Hello?
Yeah, he probably muted his mic while you were speaking.
G-Kon, are you there?
Unmute your mic, G-Kon.
G-Kon, he's on the phone line, but apparently he's not
I'm sorry,
responding.
I heard,
okay.
No, I heard you guys. Because I'm sorry about that. Go ahead. What you
that's funny.
brother?
I was just
ask the question again, bro.
What you saying? I was just trying to figure out, are you saying that E1B1A originates in West Africa, or are you saying that it migrated to West Africa? Because from my
I'm
perspective,
saying that it comes out of that. Yeah.
You saying that it originates in West Africa?
Yes, definitely. It originates in West Africa. In other words, not all haplogroups or subclads come out of Africa. It's some that originate outside of Africa. You might have markers that mutations that take place, like we see. It might be a mutation that takes place in America. You might gain a mutation, and so we're eventually what's happening is we're always gaining these mutations. So we name these mutations. We have to name them, or we might say this is E1.
So that's the difference, though. So the mutations, though, these mutations, though, they're only happening. Well, I ain't gonna say only, but when we tracking these haplogroups, it's coming from that Y, right? So we know that the mom is a giver, so she gives to both her seed, right? The mitochondria is going to both. It's going to the male and the female. That Y is only going to the male, and that's the easiest one to track. And so when we track that, though, it's older. The further northern Africa on up into that Mesopotamia area, it's older in that area, right? So I'm not saying E1B1A, but especially when we go into EV38 and the further we go, because we know that these subclades have been renamed over the last, how many ever years. It seems the science shows it's older the further closer we get to Israel. It's newer the more further in the West Africa. Like, take, for instance, my specific mutation is newer in West Africa. And the further you go back into the mutations, the further northeast, even on
northwest.
Into right.
Yeah, northeast. I'm sorry.
Right. No, it is northeast across into the Levant on up into that area. It gets older. It's not younger. So
no, actually, it doesn't get older because the subclass that you're talking about when you start saying E1B1B, they're not older than E1B1A.
No.
So
I'm not talking about
E1B1A.
I'm not talking about E1B1B. I'm talking. So if we go further in, so I'm E1B1A1A1. then we click to E1B1A, then we go to E1B1, then we go to E, right? When we keep going further back, the closer we get to E, the more we see it.
Comes out of Africa.
No, it does not. It comes further northeast, and that's where I would love to sit down and build with you on, because that's
right. Well, I haven't seen a study. I'm gonna be honest, bro. I haven't seen a study. I had Ngozi on, and Ngozi, you know, he's from Team Osiris, and Ngozi is he got his bachelor's degree. He hasn't finished yet, but if you hear the brother talk, I had him on. He's very excellent when it comes to that. You know, he goes even farther than that. He goes to when you talk about lactose tolerant. Stuff like that within
right. That's all epigenetic. All that's epigenetic.
Right. He deals with a lot of that, and so when you chop it up with him, he'll tell you.
Right, I'm going to school for it too, so I would love to sit there and talk with him.
Right. And I'll link you, bro. I will link you, bro. You can't say that it's older in the Levant area, when we know where the heart of this actually comes from.
I'm not saying E1B1A. I'm not saying E1B1A is. I'm saying the further you go back into how old E is, that's where we start to see that it moves further. So like I said, us, me, you, all of us M2 babies, we are in that West Africa range, right? But the further you go back into E, especially when you get to EV38, it starts to move further north into the northeast area. I'm just telling you, that's what the science shows. I'll build with him, but we just going to exchange articles. That's
right,
all.
But we don't get where's the origin of it. Right. What I'm saying is, here's the origin of it. EV38, that is in sub-Saharan Africa. That's where that mutation came from. When it comes from there, or the Horn of Africa, when it comes from there, it's subclass. If you look at all the subclasses of E, the majority of them is in Africa. They've been more so confined to Africa, except when you start dealing with E1B1B and a little percentage of when you start dealing with E1B1A, they came out between the time of what something in those areas, which the article that I was given accounts for that, 3 to 50% among the Levant people.
I just want to say this for Sal, mute me, because I know you're going to mute me. So, the only point that I'm making,
it's coming soon, man.
I know you're going to get me. So, look. This is my last point, because this goes to the point that Zadok was tying in, and I don't want to get into the English genealogy, but just if we're talking about it's a smaller group when we go further northeast, that lines up with us being ran out of that area. That's the point that I'm getting to, right? We can't take the majority of people that are in West Africa right now and say that's where they originated from. Like it doesn't work that way. When you're getting sample groups and you try to say, well, this sample group comes basically from here, when we're taking large samples of the people that are there now, it doesn't work that way, especially when a lot of those people have heritage from coming from the northeast area. Right, so that's all I'm saying, and we could build with whoever, but the further you go back, and even if you get to before E, like where E polymorphs out of, it goes more northeast. That's all I'm saying. So I'm good, because I know Sal's going to get me, but I love y'all, brothers, man. Keep building. And G-Con, if you can hit me up, it's privatehebrew7@gmail.com. And just try to link me up with the brother, because I would love to build with it. Because like I said, I'm going to school for this, so I really want to. I'm getting my master's in this thing, so I want to understand as much as I can. Appreciate y'all.
Hey, that's what's good. Inbox me, King. Yo, hey Sal, was there somebody else you wanted to bring on the line, or me and G-Con can keep going? Because I wanted to bring some Bible.
Yeah, matter of fact, I'm going to let you bring that out, but we have like 3 people standing by right now waiting to ask their questions, and I apologize, y'all. We're going to get to y'all. You got it out.
Hey, LARON, you want to keep going, or you want to give one more person a crack on the phone?
Yeah, I think we can get the people in here, get them, because I don't want to get them in here because they've been waiting.
Okay, yeah, give us one more person, Sal.
All right, we're going to get one more person, and everybody else, please stand by. We're going to make room for y'all later on. You know, we have 3 hours, maybe 4. Yeah, let's talk about this topic. You know how debate talk for you is. Let's go to the phone line. Let's go to 706-505. You're live on air. Uh, 706-505. Can you hear me?
Yeah, what's up, Sal? Yo, this is your Hoopadon. What's up, yo? What's up, Zadok? What's up, G-Sir?
Chillin', what's going on?
Chillin', I've been waiting to talk to you on this discussion right here. About time. This has been in the making. Yeah, this has been in the making. So, now, you said that the Ebos, right? Well, first of all, before I say any of that, before I say anything, this is about the Messiah. It's about his death for us and atoning our sins. And I think all three of us will agree with that, first and foremost. So,
yeah, definitely.
So this is what I would say. Now, you said the Ebos, because they had E1B1A DNA, that they could not be genetic Israelites. Am I correct? Didn't you not say that?
I said that a lot of the on the paternal side, the E1B1A, and so they don't show any autosomal DNA as far as dealing with any markers that come up out of the east. The majority of their markers is in that area where they at. It's confined to that area. So it doesn't. We don't see no migration patterns into the east.
Okay, so what is the autosomal DNA? Because autosomal DNA tells your ancestry. That's a genetic marker. A genetic marker tells your ancestry. A haplogroup is just tell you how you travel, which migrations. So what is the Ebo's autosomal DNA?
Do they got any subclass? Is there any subclass that they got that trace back to the Middle East? Like, for instance, if they should have some autosomal DNA that comes out of the Middle East from those very areas that we see that lines up with other people just in those areas, and I have yet to see them have some of those markers. The E3, mainly they got E1B1A. I've yet to see them have E1B, except those that's in North Africa, and some of them in Northwest Africa they have those markers as far as the Moroccans, and some of the Moors just as well too. And the Beavers,
those are not markers. I'm sorry. Listen. Those, what you're telling me, haplogroups are traveling things, genetic markers. Listen, you're not even telling me autosomal. Let me tell you, this is autosomal. It'll tell you have 80% Northwest African, all right? 10% European, 5% Middle Eastern. That is autosomal DNA. Now I'm asking you, what is the Ebos?
Right, and that's what I'm asking. When you look at the Ebos, what does the Ebos actually have? Autosomal DNA comes out of the Middle East, and what is the percentage of it? You got an article? Show it to me.
No. See,
because the last article I seen of certain individuals that they had probably like a 5% to even lower than that, 0.01% coming up out of the Middle East. They should have a significant amount of autosomal DNA coming up out of the Middle East, especially seeing that Israel migrated out from the Middle East into Africa.
So they do have Middle Eastern DNA in them, right? In their autosomal.
Yeah, because they would have some because of sexual selection. Because we see the Jews came down and mingled with a lot of the people that we see from the Moors, from the Moroccan. We see all the admixture that took place during the during the Arabs, the Jewish, and also the Christianity conquest. So they would have some autosomal DNA just as well, but it's a low percentage. They shouldn't have a low percentage.
Well,
no way they should have a low percentage.
Well, we can't say that, G-Con, because we don't know how long it's been since they've been out of the Middle East. Because you already know, when it comes to autosomal, you get 50% from your dad, 50% from your So each generation, the percentages get lower and lower. But you taking 23andMe, and you know, like I know, if there's a percentage of whatever shows up, it lets you know on your timeline. It says at one point in time, one of your grandparents was 100% Middle Eastern or 100% Asian. So these guys actually have Middle East descendants. So it might seem like maybe what they're saying is true.
Well, actually, West Africa is a product of colonialism, also dealing with what took place during the Arab conquest. All of these people coming into those areas, the whole West Africa, almost North Africa, is almost Arabs. And then you start getting west, and you start with a mixture of Christians and Arabs, and a percentage of Jews is there.
But the majority, when we start looking at what took place all through these times, we see the Arab conquest, Jews coming in, Christianity coming in during those times. So even if you see some things that's culturally tied there, and you do see a low percentage of that mixture, it definitely would be there. But if it's that low, listen. The accumulation that we see is the amount of accumulation of change that we see from one organism to the next organism. It should not be. It's a slow rate. It shouldn't be to where at a percentage that they at it's that low. That doesn't make any sense. This is like me. I'm 14%. I'm 14%. I'm 30% European, right? West European.
Mm-hmm.
Well, my mom is a redhead. So when it says that it talks about I have some Irish in me. Well, when you look at that, you can see that gene that they have for redhead or Irish is something that my mom has, and so I take on some of that as well as me being L3 and also EM2. So when we look at it, I already knew that already. And then not only that is when I actually took my genetic test, I did two of them. I did one from Ancestry, and then I also did one from what is the other place? Me. Now, when I did one from Ancestry, do you know I had people that contact me from my first to my 6 cousins to contact me, and we're just lining stuff up on the family tree, linking all the pieces together. So genetically, there's something that's definitely there. So they tracing something there. So bottom line is this is even with Native America, I knew already that I had a percentage of Native America because I knew that some of my ancestors that they was that. You know what I'm saying? So I seen that percentage there. And I already knew it was there. But
let me ask you one question
America,
before you go further.
But I'm sorry.
Let me ask you a question. So you have a certain percentage of Native American. So do I. So you can claim Native American descendancy, right? Because you have some type of evidence that backs that up, right or wrong.
Not really. I mean, I wouldn't say that. You know what I'm saying? Because that's not really just how that works. But I mean, I wouldn't say that.
But you are a descendant of a Native American, right?
Right. I have some of that, but I wouldn't say I can just actually say I'm just gonna go. Yeah. I might as well be able to claim everything on that chart then.
Right, but you can. That's what I'm saying. But no, real talk though, because see, this is the thing. We as African Americans, or so-called African Americans, we are a hybrid of people. We have admixtures of a lot of things. But if you wanted to claim Native American ancestry because you are a descendant of a Native American, if I said you were lying, wouldn't I be wrong?
I mean, yeah, I'm a percentage of that, but I am more so sub-Saharan African, if anything. I'm more so 78% sub-Saharan African. I'm 78% West African. So I'm more so of that, if anything. You know what I'm saying? And I got some East African in me just as well because on my maternal side, but that's just what I am. You know what I'm saying? And most of my people, they come.
I'm hearing y'all talking. Because remember, I'm not the DNA expert. So, and the things that you guys are talking about as far as autosomal DNA. So if you got a little bit of Irish in you or a little bit of Native American, can you just tell me what's the difference between the Irish number and the Native American number in you, LARON?
I think my Irish, I think it was around about like 5% or something like that. Overall, autosomally, I had Western European, but 14% overall. Now, the Native American was like, I believe it was 1%. I think it was 1%, if I'm not mistaken.
Now, what's interesting about that is it more likely that in your bloodline, your Irish descendant is the one, the European, because there's only a certain time when somebody in your bloodline would have come in contact with a Native American for that to be on your genetic code, right? And or somebody came in line, or somebody had some, I don't know if it's mitochondrial or what, but the Western European, even though the Native American number shows up smaller than the Western European number, the Native American number does it have a chance to be more of a recent number, even though it's a small number, versus the Irish number? Would the Irish number be a more distant relative than the Native American one? Whether it probably was a Native American female somewhere in your line, you think?
Yeah, the Irish would be a little bit more closer. And the reason why it'd be more closer is because, it's really my grandpa. You know what I'm saying? So
Okay.
it's my grandpa, so I know who it is. You know what I'm saying, already. And
okay,
so it's my
let me
mom's
ask you this.
dad.
Okay, so that's your mom's dad. You said it's your mother's dad.
Okay, so that's how you end up with
Okay, so your mother's dad is Irish. So that comes through your mitochondrial DNA then, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, who does the Native American contribution come from?
I believe it comes from my dad. And the reason why I say it comes from my dad's side is because the area that I'm in, you know what I'm saying, the area that I was born in St. Louis, you know what I'm saying, and my people migrated to Mississippi. And so, I believe it comes so I believe
out there, baby.
Yeah, so I think that's what the majority of it where it comes from. Plus, I know that when I look at some of my pictures, we can kind of see some of that as well as some of my people in Chicago.
Now, that's interesting to me because y'all teaching me something. So when it comes to your genetic makeup, and then your greatest majority, you said it's like in the 70s as far as West Africa goes. Whatever groups you would be considered to be a part of out of West Africa. All of your West African DNA isn't claiming to be patrilineal. Some of it is mitochondrial too, right?
Yeah.
Okay, let me ask you
Wait. Yeah, go ahead and ask your question, fam, because me and G-Kon can
Okay, yeah. Okay, G-Kon, let me ask you a question because I know you did 23andMe. So what's the timeline? What's the timeline your African DNA starts? And what's the timeline? Don't you have Middle Eastern DNA too on your 23andMe? Didn't that show up as well?
I don't think I have any Middle Eastern. That's just it's a low percentage. I don't think I have any at all. If I'm not mistaken, I can't remember. I have to look at it. I'm driving right now, but I posted it on the. I posted it up.
Well, you know, I can't see
it's very low.
You know, I can't. We're not Facebook friends, so I can't see it.
Oh yes,
so you get the timeline. See your timeline. See, my first timeline starts with Middle Eastern DNA. My last timeline on my 23andMe starts with West African DNA. So right after West African comes the European DNA after mine. So they give you a timeline and show you where do you start off with first on your timeline. So that's why your European is probably higher at 15% because it's most recent, but your Native American is real low because that was more distant, so that it goes further back.
Yeah, but you kind of see already what the strong presence of African, DNA right then and there. You can kind of already see the strong presence. And so usually time, even though if it's something that's far distance, like if it's something that's far distance, that somebody that is actually, that's black but they get a test and they get the markers and it's at a high percentage. To the high percentage, that's strongly with what they are. That's strongly what they is, and there was some mixture that was there, but it was a low percentage, very low, and so that's what I think that took place in the past. It was something that was low. Now, if you test somebody like now, here's the thing: if you test my mom, or you probably test my dad or my grandma, it'd probably be more of a higher percentage because they was more so. It's right around the corner of them right there. But me, I'm definitely at a low percentage with that. So I don't know.
Yeah, you got the ill lion effect right there. I'm gonna let y'all speak again for like 25 minutes, and everybody else that press number 1, don't go nowhere. We're gonna get back to you guys. I also have some social media questions for y'all, so this is a very good topic. People want to engage. Is DNA testing evidence of Hebrew identity? So I'm gonna start the clock again, gentlemen. You can continue the dialogue.
Yo, that was very, very interesting. I learned something there, and I'm thankful for it. Yo, shout out to my sister Kali out of the Cottas crew. She actually has shared an article with me from Haplomaps, and it talks about the origin of the main subgroups coming out of the E markers. And what's interesting is in this one, it actually talks about why DNA, Adam, a man among men, right? I mean, it's a long article. Actually, G-Con, I'll share it with you. Maybe you got it in your joints or not. I'm not sure. But it talks about, it says in this article, it says, what is important here is the argument about where mankind began. E1B1B is African, while E1A1A is thought to have originated in Southeast Asia. What is clear is that E1A1A is the clade that represents most of modern Asia genetically, and that E1B1B represents most of modern Africa. So is this where you were talking about the mix with you and the guy before, the anonymous Hebrew, G-Con? Is that where the idea of a... Oh.
You're going to have to repeat that, brother, because I didn't hear you because I'm traveling at the same time, and so I cut in and out.
You're still traveling. Yeah, in the article that my sis sent, they said in this article, it's off the Haplomaps, and they talk about the origins of the E groups and they subgroups. And it says, what is important here is the argument about where mankind began. It says E1B1B is African, while E1A1A is thought to originate in Southeast Asia. What is clear is that E1A1A is the clade that represents most of modern Asia genetically, and that E1B1B represents most of modern Africa. The argument ensues not only about where Y DNA, Adam, first lived, but in echoes across modern arguments in politics, religion, and even economics. The migration of man occurs for various reasons. In Africa, the warming of the planet and the expansion of resources as the Pleistocene glacial period ends. And for E1A1A, which may have experienced the opposite end of that period of climate change with the melting ice, coastal areas flooded and forces island-swelling humans to flee or die. This is one of the explanations for the spread of E1A1A. So when you and the anonymous Hebrew were talking about the Afro-Asiatic, is that what you're talking about? Some haplogroups come from a merging of what would be considered a dominant Asian gene, and today a dominant Asian gene, and today a dominant African gene, and you see that there's a merging of the two some time ago. And some people might have less than the others, but it seems like you got these two E groups, and that's what I think the last brother was saying. What was his name? Yehukanan? I forget. I'm sorry. I forgive me if I messed up his name. But his claim was that when it comes to it was anonymous Hebrew. His claim was that the E group period is a type, and all the E's come off of it. He was saying that the further north you go, that you're gonna go. The E gets older, but people in Africa and people in Asia share part of the E of whatever the original E is. The E1B1B and the E1A1A come from a common E.
Right. He might be talking about E1A, which is I think E1A, which is what is it? Is EM132, which is another name for it. And I think it comes up out of it comes from that area from the Natufians or something like the Natufians. They come down. They date that back to around like 9,000, 10,000 BC, and they come down from West Asia. Yeah, West Asia, and they mix in with when we can actually see that admixture there, though. They mix in with some sub-Saharan Africa, but that's a back migration, they say. That's a back migration, and they're the ones who bring what is it? They bring what is it when you cultivate in Atlanta? Agriculture. They bring agriculture with them, as well as some of the guys that was up. But it's another people that came up out of there too, from Africa, from North Africa, and so they're kind of related to them. And so when you start looking at some of the people that's in sub-Saharan Africa, you can see a percentage of them, and you can see that they come back into Africa, and they're mostly tied with people that's up in the Levant area. A lot of them is tethered, and that's why we see a 3 to 15% admixture among those people that's in the Levant area. And then some of the Jews that are saying that they're Jews are 3 to 7% in those areas because of the back migration. And so I think that when we look at E1B1A, that mutation, or EV38, that mutation has, we can kind of see some of those people among the Ethiopians, that has some of those markers just as well, has some of those mutations just as well among them. And so we actually know about that, those people down there. But then we start looking at people that they also have J markers too, just as well. So all I'm saying is that migration have made its way.
No, finish your thought. You were saying that their migration made its way.
That migration, these are subclass basically that we see. That migration has made its way, basically, and really the origin of that marker is out of Africa. Most people say the origin of that marker is out of Africa. I don't know why that article is saying that it's out of Asia, because it's really out of Africa. Most people say. Sometimes you may see a question mark there.
Well, you do. Well, I think to be fair to the anonymous Hebrew, he said that he's actually going to school for that stuff right now. He's going for his master's, and so whatever he's learning, there are articles that are like he actually named 2 geneticists who actually are claiming a further northeastern originating of whatever of that particular marker, where before some thought it may have originated in Africa, but they're claiming they finding evidence more and more that it is possible it came from even from further north, and that's cool. I mean, time is going to tell, and cats might sit in 2025 with more evidence now as the next 7 years pass and be like, okay, 2 more groundbreaking studies actually, kind of gives more perspective. So we was limited in view before.
And they look different
now,
too, bro. They look different. I mean, they're not like, you could tell a difference between them, and they look like the Berbers almost. Like when you look at them, you could see them. They look almost like the Berbers. A lot of them, when you start seeing them, just in those areas, because I think there's a people that's called the Mali people. And so you can look at them and tell culturally from their what they how they make certain things, how they do certain things. It is from an Asiatic perspective, but there is a mixture of that in a migration that we see of those people that come down from a back migration that we see.
That right there, this right here, I want to read something right quick. I want to go back in the Bible right quick because once again the overarching question is, can DNA prove? Is DNA needed to prove who the Hebrew Israelites are? Now, what's interesting is there is a claim. The current, he's the current Prime Minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu. He claims to be a direct descendant of Benjamin. What's interesting is they are claiming to either be from Judah, they're claiming to be from Benjamin, or a smaller group are claiming to be from Levi. And more or less the Kohanim ones are the ones who's supposed to be carrying this JCMH. Now, you really go into other countries where you hear individuals who are actually claiming to be from Naphtali or Asher or Dan. Like in Sudan, there's a great number of individuals there, and the culture, or should I say the history or oral tradition, is actually claiming among some tribes in Sudan that the name originally was, that the land was originally not inhabited, and that the people who are there now, those who practice quote unquote Judaism, for lack of better expression, claim that their descendants, that their fathers had escaped the Assyrian wars and had fled into Africa, as is the tradition of Hebrews to always try to flee into Africa when they're attacked from the north, because Africa is not just Africa, but Egypt properly, and that from Egypt, through some time there and some persecutions there, that a large group of their ancestors made their way across the Sahara, and they came into a land, and they kind of describe it in great detail through their oral tradition, and they came to a land that was inhabited by no man, and it was watered by some brooks and some marshes, and so they set up there. And the claim is that the name Sudan, today that has stuck through time, actually was named after Dan. The descendants of Dan wanted to name what they planned on building there after their progenitor, just as in the lands of all ancient times, the people would have a proclivity to name their cities or their territories after themselves. So Judea itself is a large swath of southern Palestine that's actually named after Judah. Now, that's interesting to me, and I'm like, okay, maybe that is, but I want to show something here, and I want all people who would claim to, just beyond a shadow of a doubt, you 100% of flesh and blood Israelite. Zadok in Israel believes he is an Israelite, and I've explained a timeless amount of times, well, I'm exaggerating, I've explained a great number of times what my claim is to that. And so if anyone wants to know, all you got to do is ask me and I'll explain. But I want to read this right here in the Bible. I already read earlier that Abraham got 8 sons. Only one of them sons would be claiming to be Israel, as far as we are descendants of Abraham through Isaac to Jacob through the 12 patriarchs. But whatever Abraham's patrilineal marker would be that he passed to his sons, all the Keturah's 6 sons would have had that same similar marker, and so would Ishmael. So even when we talk about today who's related, just right there in Genesis, we got 8 boys who are going to fan out and form 8 different nations. And out of them 8, only one is going to be called Israel. So when genetic testing is done, if it was done back then, it would have been very difficult to, you could have more or less said, hey, all of y'all kind of might lead back to one patriarch, Abraham, but then we still got to remember Abraham got his line. He got his patriarchal DNA from his father Terah, and they were in modern-day Syria, I believe. So
right.
if that's
his alleles, his parents, his alleles, those alleles that we see that he has, that he would have passed down some of that information to his children, would have passed off on them, and that's actually what we see genetically when we start looking at these people that are from from Arabia, that's from up north and West Asia. All of these people are really tied together, because you got to remember the very people that are surrounding Israel is they brothers and sisters, basically. They brothers. They are brothers to each other. Abraham, who took Lot with him, Ammon, Moab, them, and then you see Ishmael. All of these people are all genetically tied to each other. They definitely are. And so when you look at it, you talked about.
No.
You're talking about Eldad, though. You're talking about Eldad. If you look at in the Jewish encyclopedia, Eldad is also mentioned, and so that migration that you're talking about the Sudan, there's a scripture that talks about that. I believe it's in is it Nehemiah, or one of them scriptures, Zephaniah, when it says that he will take them beyond the rivers of Cush. That's talking about the
right.
Yeah, so it goes beyond the Sudan, and so when you start looking at it, it's not talking about west, it's talking about south, and we see that migration because we're actually talking about them very people that we see, which is J1C3, and a lot of them guys that has that J marker, that actually a lot of them migrated from across from Yemen and came from Yemen over into that very area too, just as well, because those people are tied, as in Yemen, they are actually tied to a lot of the people that's in that very family that we see of Abraham now. They all tied to them. And so what I'm saying is that when you look at Eldad, he was an Eldad the Danite. I don't know how to pronounce his name, but
I think you're saying it right.
Yeah, and his name is well, matter of fact, let me quote. It says in the Jewish Encyclopedia, the Oxford University Jewish Encyclopedia, it says dictionary. It says scholars postulate on linguistic grounds and internal evidence that Eldad originated among the Jews of Ethiopia, and it's also mentioned in Jane S. Gerber, and it says Eldad Hadanai. Quote. It says I don't know how to say that, the Oxford Dictionary of the Jewish Religion, and then it gives you the page 232. And it came out in 2011. So basically, what it's saying is, if you look at Eldad, who he was, and in his story, they have his story of who he was, and he talks about that very migration of the Jews going down in those areas, and the Most High was going to take them to those areas. So we see that there is a strong presence among the Ethiopians, and this is why they actually have not been denied of coming into Israel, called Beta Israel, or coming into those areas. They actually been given aid to come back. Now, when we look at how most people say, well, they're being treated bad. No, it's not them that's being treated bad. It's those people that are among them because they look like Africans that are in Africa. That's among them that's causing chaos in the land. This, walking around there with AKs up under their what's-calls and playing like they Jews, but they not really Jews. You know what I'm saying? They're not really with that movement. So I just wanted to bring out something. I know about that migration already. We're not denying that there is not a migration among those people that we see this, and we even those that when we look at West Africa, because we see that there's also some rabbis that was in Timbuktu, that was in West Africa just as well. But for the most part, when we start looking, we see some things that's culturally there. Linguistically, there are some things that's there, but when we start looking at some things that's genetically there, then we have to say, well, this is a product of conversion at this point, because genetically.
Now that's the point. That's the point that I'm getting to.
Right.
That's the point that I'm getting to. As far as those who would claim to just say, well, I'm Israel because somebody comes out of West Africa, or you do, and of course we know that. I mean, honestly, bro, we know that Nigeria and Benin, more slaves came out of Nigeria and Benin than came out of the west of West Africa, as far as where they were being imported from when they were being carried to the slave prisons on the west, on the coast. When you got modern day Ghana, Liberia, and such, they were trekking them by the tens of thousands down there. And what's interesting is when you read some articles that are coming from I got articles that come straight out of Africa, where they are writing about the slave trade, and they're talking about how the internal wars that existed among the people who we just call Africans. We never make a distinction between them, really. We just call everybody African. It goes a little bit deeper than that. The same way that you just brought up the fact about Ethiopia. Now, this is the thing. When you look at them, you may not be able to really tell the difference, but among themselves, they know the difference. And then when you get into culture, oral traditions, linguistics, all of that doesn't always prove genetics, but it can prove possible conversion. And this is, and what I wanted to read was this here. We all know that a mixed multitude had left out of Egypt with Israel. So from the beginning, what I'm saying is I don't believe that any Israelite today, one who calls themselves an Israelite, could point out the mixed multitude that had become grafted into the nation over centuries and centuries. You understand the point I'm making? It would be impossible. Now, when you read, we'll take for granted we read Moses saying, I'm talking to Israel and the mixed multitude among us. We reading that like we know who the mixed multitude is, and like we know the physical characteristic differences between Jacob's sons and them. And I don't think we could. It would be kind of difficult to me to say that. And sometimes when it comes at least to physical appearance, the mother sometimes will contribute a more dominant physical aspect to her son and daughter than the father. Sometimes you'll see a man and a woman with child, and you'll look at the kid and be like, man, these kids look like this, just mama, look just like their mama. You looking at the daddy like, man, you sure you the daddy? And he's like, hey, come on now, don't play like that. But, I mean, honestly, and sometimes it happens vice versa. But Ephraim, the tribe of Ephraim and the half-tribe of Manasseh, I believe they would have looked, it's very stark possibility that they could have looked very close to their North African cousins because their mitochondrial DNA would have had some of that Egyptian blood mixing with the Shemitic blood of Joseph that he would have gotten from his father Jacob. And we know that his blood he had Syrian blood in him because his mother is Rachel, Laban's sister. So when you put all of them things into it, what the children would have come out looking like, it can be so vast and so kaleidoscope that we'll just point to one look and be like, see, that's us. I don't think you can do that. Now, what I want to do is I want to read in the text. And when we go to Exodus chapter 12 and verse 48, the Most High, because he told Israel, the strangers among you, because it says in verse 38, a mixed multitude left Egypt with them. But when you get to around verse 45, the Lord say, the stranger among you shall not eat of the Passover, only Israel. But he says this, verse 48, when a stranger shall sojourn with thee and will keep the Passover to Yah, let all his males be circumcised. And then let him come near and keep it, and he shall be as one that is born in the land, for no uncircumcised person shall eat thereof. So now this is people they are so convinced to come into this practice that Yah has given Israel that they would be willing to go through them steps. And once they circumcise themselves, just as Paul said in his letter, they're not exonerated from them. Whoever will be circumcised, you kind of make yourself a debtor to do the law perfect. So with that being said, right there, you don't know the untold numbers of people who weren't Israelites by blood, who came and sojourned in the land, and by the right of Yah would become Jews in that manner because they would become converts, whether they was from Hamitic descent, other Shemitic tribes, or even Japhethic tribes, right? And then I want to bring this up. When you go to the book of Joshua, we know that Rahab and her whole father's household, Joshua 6:25, Rahab and her father's entire household and all that she had, it says she dwells in Israel even to this day because she hid the messengers which Joshua the spy sent out to Jericho. Now, the writer, this wasn't written in Joshua's day. This was written time later, and whoever the writer was letting you know Rahab's people is a part of Israel even until this day because they were saved. Now, how could you point – Rahab and them were straight Canaanites, man. How could you differentiate who her people would be today amongst the greater expanse of Israel? I think it's impossible. They would just be so dispersed and amalgamated even into the gene pool. One more example, and I just want to say for the record, anybody got a problem with that, man, you go to Hebrews, go to James' letter. And in them letters, Rahab is constantly used as a testament of what faith looks like in Israel. So if anybody want to speak and have a problem with that, you take that up with Yah. The last thing I want to bring up is in Deuteronomy 23, when it talks about the Ammonite and the Moabite shall not enter the congregation of Yah to their 10th generation. They shall not enter the congregation of the Lord forever. Some people make that thing. You could go to the book of Nehemiah, and when you go to the book of Nehemiah, it says that, I think it's chapter 13, it talks about on the day that they stood up and read the law of Moses, and they found in it where it said the Ammonite and the Moabite shouldn't come into the congregation of God forever. And it said at that time they separated themselves from all the mixed multitude. Now, that was a decision of theirs. That was not the commandment of Yah. They did it. But they got it wrong because that word did not, the Most High basically didn't say that they could never come into the congregation and be amongst Israel. The word for congregation there means the assembly of the people. They weren't allowed to become a part of the assembly of Israel until past that 10th generation. How do I prove that? Go to 1 Chronicles 11. Go to 1 Chronicles 12. You're going to read about Ismaiah the Gibeonite, who was the top of David's 30 mighty men. The Gibeonites were Canaanites who actually made a covenant with Joshua. Joshua and them made a covenant with them because they tricked them. Saul wanted to please Israel and Judah, so he tried to destroy the Gibeonites. And when Saul died, the sons of Gibeon came to David and said, yo, we are to have revenge for what Saul did. And David said, what do I do for y'all? They said, give us Saul's sons, and we're going to hang them. And David gave the Gibeonites, Saul's sons and the Gibeonites. David gave these Canaanite descendants among Israel, Saul's other sons left alive, and they hung Saul's sons up. And this was the repayment to kill the beef between the Gibeonites because of the covenant that had been made with them to bring them into the nation of Israel. Now, I guarantee you that no Israelite today, no self-proclaimed Israelite, could point out a Gibeonite. And Ismaiah the Gibeonite, after that, became one of the top military leaders of David's 30 mighty men in his army. You also had I'm almost done. I just want the Bible to speak for a minute so that people can understand where I'm coming from. And at the same time, I believe that G-Con don't have an issue with anything that I'm reading here. 1 Chronicles chapter 11. Come on, Esau. Okay, boom. 1 Chronicles 11. And it says this. Where we at? David's three mighties. Oh, okay, here we go. You got 1 Chronicles chapter 11, 26. These are also the valiant men of the armies, right? So it's letting you know that these are the men who were of the 30 honorable mighty in the army of Israel. And their name is written as a memorial to them forever. I want y'all to listen, Israel. Listen up real good. You got, wait, hold on. Come up here. Oh, my bad. There we go. You got verse 39, Zelek, the Ammonite. In verse 41, you got Uriah, the Hittite. And we know what happened in that situation and how the Most High had an issue. And David basically suffered the rest of his life for unjustly killing, having the Hittite put to death so that he could hide the fact that he done slept with the man's wife and got her pregnant. David is a great man, but yet this was an evil on his record that was left there so we could know. And then when you go down to verse 46, you have Ithma the Moabite. And when you look up these words in Hebrew, yes, it's referring to the ethnic Moabites, the ethnic Ammonites, and the ethnic Hittites. And then when you go over to chapter 12, right over to the next chapter, I just want to prove something. When you go to the next chapter, you have, where you at? Where the homie at? But there we go, verse 4. Chapter 12 of 1 Chronicles, verse 4. And Ismaiah the Gibeonite, a mighty man among the 30, and over the 30. So out of that list of David's 30 chief warriors, the leader was a Gibeonite. That's the son of Ham from Canaan. One of his chief men was Uriah the Hittite, was of the 30. He treated Uriah dirty and had him killed for his wife, but yet that's a Hittite. The Hittite are the Hattai. We know that that's Ham's descendants. And then you have the Moabite, and you have the great Ammonite warrior. You got 4 individuals who lived and died in the nation, them and their descendants, and whatever sons they had were amalgamated into the nation of Israel. And I got one more historical tidbit. A G-Con.
Hold on.
Let me.
Yeah, because you kind of. Yeah, I hear you. Can you?
Wait, hold on. I know I'm swinging wild right now, but I gotta put this last one in there. Edom, with these cats running around talking about Esau, the white man, and the Lord hate Esau. If the Lord hate Esau, he God. He can say what he wants, but he told you in commandment, you shall not abhor Edom. He is your brother. You shall love him, right? And he will be allowed to come into the assembly of Israel in his third generation. Now, I want to read this about Esau. I'm just going to go to Josephus right quick, because anyone who knows history knows that John Hyrcanus, during the Hasmonean Wars of the Maccabee family against the Greeks, when they made leagues with the Romans and finally defeated the Greeks, John Hyrcanus, the leader of the Levitical Maccabees family, went and forced all of Idumea and Mount Seir, the descendants of Edom at that time. He forced all of them to either convert to Israel's culture or die. And history tells us that they all became Jews, just like in the book of Esther. So today, when you got so many people being amalgamated into the nation, it would be almost impossible to just look at someone who says, I'm a Jew, and they might be of a white skin, or they might have a modern-day Arab look to us, or even look like someone from Ethiopia, and we shoot all of them down. And as you said earlier, you got all the Israelites of the East who never even came back to Jerusalem, and they never lived there because basically they didn't go back after the captivity besides the 40-something thousand. And check this out, the Romans never put them on ships and sell them anywhere. So all I'm saying is we have to be careful, and I want to read this so my ISUPK homies can get better when they describe what Esau looked like. They want to say, look at him, he red. When he get mad, he turn red. That's how you know he Esau. That is not scholarship. I'm going to read out of the book of Josephus, chapter 18, concerning Isaac's sons. Let this get out, Sal. She had twins. The elder, from his head to his feet, was rough and hairy. And the Hebrews called such a hairy roughness Esau. Esau does not describe his color. It describes him being born and having hair. And in the book of Jasher, it says they called him Esau, saying he was almost looking like a full man because he already had hair, like he was older. And I want to read this. When Jacob tricked Isaac, Josephus says, when the supper was ready, he took goat skin and put it on his arms, so that by the reason of its hairiness, he might by his father be believed to be Esau. For they, being twins, and in all things else alike, differed only in this thing. The only difference between, I believe, the Levite Josephus, not these dudes today. The only physical difference between Jacob and Esau when they were alive was that Esau was hairy. Other than that, they were fully identical. They even almost sounded alike, which is why Isaac was like, you kind of sound like Jacob, but you feel like Esau. He could tell the difference. If Esau was eventually turned to Judaism, then how can anyone today just simply point out the Edomite when they were fraternal twins? Esau was just a little bit hairier. You are going to lose the fight trying to prove beyond a shadow of a doubt that you are a flesh and blood Israelite when that's not necessary. The Jews is even telling you that's not necessary. If you hold the Torah and or the culture of Israel, then no one can tell you you're not an Israelite. And that's my stand. Go ahead, G-Kon. I had to bring the Bible into it. We've been talking all night, and the Word of God needs to speak for a minute. So that's all I got to say.
Right.
Yeah,
and
I'm gonna let you get the floor for a while. Yeah, I'm gonna let you get the floor for a while.
Right. And I definitely agree to everything you said. And that really make my point right there. That when you look at it, all the people that you named, these people are all Middle Eastern people. They all, when you look at it, even when we read the articles, it's saying the same thing. They from the Hittites, look where they all dwelt at. And so when you look at the admixture that came among them from Africa, it's not a significant amount. And so they all the same people. And like you say, I agree. You definitely, shouldn't be looking at if this person's got this marker or this and that, because that's not what it's based on. It says they are all not Israel who are Israel, but in Isaac should I see be called. And so, that's where the promise is at. Christ is the promise, and those that attach to Christ, that's what it's talking about. So I definitely agree to that. But I think that for the most part, when people get to talking about stuff genetically and saying that with these guys, I wish they would keep that same emphasis on when they get to talking about the Ashkenazi Jews or any other Jew that we're saying that are Jews, Sephardic or Mizraim and Mountain Jews. There's so many Jews that they've given account of, Jews that they have counted, and know basically these cultures actually stay isolated a lot in their areas. Even when they was in Babylon, we know that in Babylon that there was Jews that was isolated in Babylon, and some of them was even kicked up out of Babylon, early on. And so, where Iraq. And so nobody never talks about the Jews of Shinar, Iraq, the Iraqi Jews, well, those are not Jews or this and that, not realizing that, these people never experienced no 70 A.D. They probably got letters and stuff like that later on. Did it happen? Some of the people was probably, gone, and they didn't get a chance to even see those people again. But everybody that you named, or those cultures that surround Israel, even from Rahab, they all are in that same area. Those people are the Leviathans. They are, the Levant people. That's them. And so genetically, they tie in with each other, so we can actually look and say, this where these people was, and we actually know where their migrations is actually, and so is actually at. And so when we look at the Jews that are in the land today, 30% of their maternal side traced back to Europe. So we know that they migrated to Europe and probably took European wives. But when we look at the other percentage that trace back to the Middle East, to those very people that's in the Levant area and also the cultures that surrounding those areas, we can't say that these people are more so European of anything, or these are Khazarian. When the Khazarian people, when the very people that we see that's being tested in Khazaria have the same genetics, with the people who they say that are Khazarians or that come from that area, have the same genetics, share genetics as the people that's in those areas. They all share that stuff that's in those areas. So you can't say predominantly that these people are just.
Hey, a whole bunch of Israelites and Jews around the world just observed the civil day of Purim a week or so ago. If you believe the story in Esther, from Ethiopia to India, that's the Horn of Africa all the way through the so-called Levant into past the so-called Middle East, all the way over to the borders of Tibet, man. When you want to get into it,
I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't say that. I disagree with that because Africa, all three is.
Hold on. You disagree with the book of Esther?
No, I'm saying not that. I'm disagreeing with what you're saying is the Horn of Africa, or when you say that this is Africa. Our ancestors never would have said that the whole continent that you see, because it's on the same tectonic plate, is as Africa. No, that's really Western European mindset. In other words, these are different cultures of people, and they have boundaries. So the people are free, or old free, is from Libya. The people that we see that's from Africa, I'm not from Africa, that's from Egypt, these are different cultures. So in reality, Israel is not Northeast Africa. It has nothing to do with that. That came about later on. They would have never called themselves Northeast Africans. These people are
no. I don't think they would have called themselves Northeast African or Northeast African, but the truth is that what we would know today as Egypt and also today Palestine, going over towards today modern Iraq, that all would have been considered under the territory and the auspices of the Pharaoh of Egypt. We got enough historical proof to show who ran that all the way up until the Babylonians took it.
Right, it's going as far. No, bro.
What you mean, no?
The 3100 BC.
Bro, Canaan was the vassal of Egypt. That's known.
Listen, later you gotta let me build, bro, because I let you get it in for a minute, bro. You gotta let me go.
Well, yeah, I was letting you and the homies go in on the DNA. I was sitting back. I was real quiet, homie. I was letting y'all go. Right. Go ahead, though.
3100 BC, right? In 3100 BC, Norma came up into a place that was not his place. Culturally, these people was different. These was the followers of South. He came up as being the horse king, Heru king, or falcon god, up into that place into the north, and he took that place. Those were Asiatic people. So these was people from the Sudan coming up to people that's in the north until finally they all pushed up into the delta, into that area. These are Asiatics. And when you start looking at
hold on. Just to be clear, because when you say the term Asiatic, that doesn't describe a clan. That just describes where people live versus other people. But you could be Asiatic and be related to the people. Wait, hold on. I just want to make a point. Now you correct me if I'm wrong. If you're a descendant of Cush, like Nimrod and them was, and they found Shinar and Akkad and Nineveh, which today is in the modern Iraq area and modern day Saudi Arabia, even bordering Turkey. Today, if that is their original land, they could be considered. But listen, they're not. But what I'm saying is that's just describing a territory. That the territory don't describe who they are. They're just in the territory.
But listen, culturally,
right?
Culturally, what we see is in Asia is what we see in Northern Africa and Egypt in the Delta was from Asia, Asiatic customs.
No, I don't have a problem with that.
Right,
I don't have a problem with that at all.
Two different styles of pottery. All of that was different, man. And so when we look at it, these are people that we see that Norma is coming up to come and take this place. And so when we look at the Levant, they never had that place. They pushed all the way north. That was never theirs. They pushed north. These are different people.
What was never theirs? Who is the theirs?
When you look at Egypt, that was never their land. That was never theirs. They pushed and took that.
Bro, now that's where me and you will part and disagree. I'm not saying as far as like that was their headquarters, but it is provable that Egypt, that all of the so-called Levant was vassal. Canaan ran the Levant, and Canaan is relative to Egypt.
Listen, brother. If anybody, bro, I'm telling you, Zadok, you keep cutting me, bro. I know that. That was not their land in the first place. They pushed and they took that land. That was not their land. That's why, if you look at it, it says that was Mizraim. They had their land. Now, Canaan, which was the low place above Canaan, was the land of Aram. That's where came from. His peoples came, Laban, and that's where Abraham and them went. They went to that place, coming from from Ur, right? So what I'm saying is brother, that was not all their land. That was, right.
Ur is Mesopotamia.
There's another Ur
in Mesopotamia, correct?
Yeah. There's another Ur that's in that area too. That's up in northern Mesopotamia. So there's two Urs actually. So that's the argument between what the scholar's saying, where he came from. Did he come because we look at the patterns? He might have came from northern Mesopotamia rather than Ur that we see this in Lord.
Either or, it would make sense if his father Terah, according to the tradition, was a chief general to Nimrod. This is the Israelite tradition that he was a chief general to Nimrod, and Nimrod ran to a degree what would today, back then what we would have called Mesopotamia. Today, that would be modern day Iraq, Turkey, modern day Syria, and so forth. Right? That would have been his land, right?
Yeah, he ran that land, and his descendants pushed towards the east. Towards the west. That we see coming. That I believe dealing with Norman now, and then they start pushing upwards. But that was not their land. That land
no. You're right. No, you're right. But what I'm saying is,
was not their
all
land.
of
They
that
took
land.
That land.
No problem. Because Israel took Canaan. No problem. What I'm saying is that, but all of that belonged to Ham's children. That's my point.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Ham's children. Yeah, but remember, Ham's children was fighting against each other too over land too. Because we start looking at the Hittites. All right. So what I'm saying is,
no problem.
All these sons had a portion, their lands and their goings about, according to when we look at Genesis. They had a portion of those lands.
And then through war, they conquered each other and took stuff from one another.
Right, and so when we look at Mesraim, he had his portion. Didn't nobody tell Mesraim to go all the way up into the Levant area. That's something that he did. And so that's why
the Lord let him raise up. The Lord let him raise up like that. But he still went up into his. What I'm saying is, he went up into his brother's. He went up into his brother's portion. He went up. It wasn't his, but the portion he went up into still belonged to his relative. That's what I'm saying.
Right. But
they were relatives.
At that point, right? Yeah. But at that point, that didn't really mean anything, because you got to understand, these people are speaking two different languages now. They're not communicating. Right. This is why they fight. All right, this is why they fight. When you start looking at even those that was up in Ugarit, or looking at the Amarna letters and looking at the tablets, these people were speaking different things. This is why Pharaoh and them had people to translate those things, because they was using the Akkadian script. So therefore, they was up under the Assyrian Empire. And when you look at it
was beef ever since what the Most High did at Babel. It was every common language speaking clan was against the other. It didn't really matter that y'all might be cousins or even brothers. That don't matter now. Once the Lord separated them by language, now culture and things of that nature become the common factor even more than so-called blood ties.
Right.
It don't matter who our daddy is.
Right. And all I'm saying is that all of these people is really coming from the same area, and the genetics actually show what areas they actually coming from. When did they come from that place? How Israel is tied into these people who they was among those areas. Now, when you start looking at some of these articles, because I got a gang of articles, that if people are going to make that emphasis on who Israel mixed into and who it can be, and they also need to make that emphasis when you're talking about the Ashkenazi Jews.
I don't have an issue with that. Because I know where they went.
Right, and so we know that but for the audience that don't know, a lot of these people are making these arguments and don't really realize that 1 million Jews went into Africa. But let's talk about the other Jews that went into the other places that they don't want to talk about. There was more than 1 million Jews. Most of the Jews that we see, there was around 6th century, the 1st century, there was almost in the land of Israel about 2.5 million Jews. Around the 100 BC, 1.8. Then when you start looking at around 350 BC, 1.2. So when you go all the way over, you go all the way up, you start to realize that a lot of these Jews, look how many Jews it was in Mesopotamia and Persia alone. 1 million Jews. But outside of them, G-Con, if you even go before them, what doesn't get put on the table enough are the 10 tribes. Judah and Benjamin and them are just two of the tribes, and they only had a certain part of the Levites. You had a whole other number that quadrupled what was left in the land in size. And as far as I know, maybe you can, Hamath and Habor and these other lands that it said that Sennacherib and Sargon and them took the children of Samaria out the land and took them far out of the land. As far as I understand, and maybe you've looked at this more than me, they actually went even further than today what we would call the Taurus and or the Caucasus Mountains.
Now that's putting them into territory that we would say belonged to, by the time of the Roman Empire, barbarian tribes.
This is why
tribes in that land.
So I got to cut it real quick, fellas, real quick. We have like 2 minutes on the air, family. We have 2 minutes on the air. If you're listening on social media and you're enjoying the show, you're going to have to call in to hear the rest of the show live. That number to call in is 319-527-6239. I promise we're going to get some of your calls. I know you guys have been standing by patiently. We're going to get some of your calls and also we're going to read some of your emails. But you got to call in before the time runs out. Again, the number is 319-527-6239. Go ahead, gentlemen.
Go ahead, LaRon. I was just saying that they are that the 10 tribes were taken. We're not even talking about Judah and them and what happened with Babylon and Persia. There were their brothers from the 10 tribes were taken into lands and migrated further north, going past the Taurus and the Caucasus Mountains. So when you have people who would be considered, Jew is now a name that covers all the tribes. It ain't even just talking about Jew. Right. If you deal with Torah and you got some of them cultural practices, if you got culture with you, if you deal with Torah principles, they will call you Jew, but you could have been Simeon, you could have been Reuben, or whatever. They don't talk about them tribes by name like they talk about Jew. Them people, a lot of them found themselves being in modern day places that are called that belong to the sons of Japheth, and there was mingling that went on there. So why would someone who might say, well, I'm Ashkenaz, but I'm Israel, but I'm Jew, is it possible that the 10 tribes were in European territory before the Jews were even in Babylonian territory?
And when you start looking at
No, go ahead, bro. I'm just saying, if that's the case, man, then this thing is, that net is so big. They mixed with so many people.
Right, and that's all I'm saying is when you start looking at them, and my main thing is really focused and keyed in on why I deal with it is because I'm looking at prophecy, what eschatology is saying. What is Zechariah 14 saying? Well, what's up with this third or fourth temple that we see? Which we know that the third temple I would believe was actually Herod's temple, because he did a lot of enhancements and upgrades to the temple. So I always say Herod's temple, which they said it was Herod's temple too, just as well. But you know the story on that. But that temple was reared up 46 years, whereas the temple that was the second temple was 49 years when the first temple was destroyed. And so when we talk about this, so to speak, third temple, this fourth temple that's supposed to be coming, I don't know how you view that, but I viewed it, it's clear that in prophecy that Israel is going to build, a portion of Israel is going to build that temple and have priests in that temple. And I think that Revelation 11, Zechariah 14 kind of shows that there are Jews in the land, and there will be government in the land, and Israel will be government inclined. And the only way I see that taking place is through partial fulfillment of Israel coming back to their land. In spite of what people might say, how they got back into the land, that's really all propaganda to me, because I'm not here to say, well, I support what Israel's doing, because I really don't, to be honest, because I see Israel doing a lot of wicked things. Whether it's the Jewish rabbis or whoever, if they ain't believe in Christ, they blind. You know what I'm saying? And they doing wicked things behind the table from what I've been seeing. So I would say that they are the synagogue of Satan, professing to be Jews but not circumcised in heart, not being born again. And so what I'm saying here is this is that, even though people might say, well, this is not them or that's not that, well, what about what the prophecies is saying? The prophecies is clear that they will show us a Jew. They might say, well, show us that he's supposed to be going through these curses. Well, hold on, Israel back to the land, and during the time of Cyrus was still a pagan king after that. How do we know? Because we have his own words, we have his writings, we have the Cyrus cylinder, and he was still worshiping the god of Marduk, and he didn't only bring Israel back to their land to build their temple, but he also sent the Babylonians back to their land to build their temples just as well. And so, even though he allowed them to come back, the history is only pointing towards Israel because Israel is writing about their history. But secular witnesses pull forth, extra biblical sources pull forth evidence that Cyrus himself was still a pagan. So God was still using a pagan to bring back Israel unto their land to build their temple. And so when you say that what took place in 1948, and you say, well, hold on. Well, it was a lot of propaganda that was there, but God just said in Zechariah 14 that he's going to gather all the nations against Israel. Who's doing the gathering? He's gathering them against Israel. Why? Because the same reason why he gathered them in the past to come and take Israel, because of Israel forgot their strength. Not only that is he's going to show them that he is the captain of their salvation, as well as bringing all Israel back into the land once he do bring them back in the land. So all I'm saying, if you're saying that you're an Israelite over here, that's fine. But, hey, y'all need to be praying for y'all brothers that's in that land, those Israelites. Bottom line, because they Israel, and y'all need to pray that God deliver their behinds and get them delivered from the wickedness that they doing. You know, the ones that is causing the confusion, whether if they up under the Rothschilds or whatever the case may be. They was doing it back then, and they doing it now. And that's my standpoint on this.
All right, fellas, we got to get some time to the audience, y'all. But I'm definitely enjoying the dialogue. I'm going to go back and check it out later on, of course, as well as the audience. I know that you guys enjoying this dialogue. Again, if you want to go check it out, if you're new to the show, you got to go back to www.blogtalkradio.com/debate talk for you to check out the archives. Of course, we're on YouTube and we're on iTunes in the podcast section. But we got to get some of these callers, some of their questions out or comments. Let's go to 678-685. You're live in there.
Yeah, how you doing, Sal? How you doing, brother Zadok? How you doing, brother G-Kon? I just want to say it's a pretty good show, man, and I just want to give up to the brothers that's on the panel, and I just want to make a few comments, Sal. You know, like I said, it's a good show, and then maybe address one or two of the brothers that's on. For the brother Zadok, you know what I'm saying? You're a real friendly brother, but I guess that's why you're a priest, you know what I'm saying? And actually, it's kind of interesting. I kind of want to speak with you if, maybe the time possible, just on social media about what you were saying in regards to Matthew 1 and Luke 3, because I definitely have, some interesting, points I'd like to just, run across with you. But, yeah, man, definitely.
Okay.
Yeah, no doubt.
I thought you were talking to this. You're talking about from the Facebook post. I got you.
Right, no doubt. And I just want to say to, all the camp brothers that's listening real quick that, the brother was spitting some real science right there as far as the, before G-Kon, got in. But, that's what, the real message of Israel is, as if, the camp brothers hearing this and they probably they don't like it, but what you got to realize is that, the first person that sold us into slavery was Israelites. And even when we was in Israel, Jeremiah had to plead with us to treat the slaves right, to free the slaves. So, we've been there and we've done that. You know what I'm saying? It don't make no sense. But, the brother, actually dated the whole dialogue when he brought up the situation of just Exodus itself with that mixed multitude that was coming out of Egypt. When you go to DNA, you're going to get confused because you have Egyptians, you have Hittites in the area because the Hittites was the ruling party in Canaan before Egyptians was. So when those foreigners living in Israel for hundreds and hundreds of years, they are literally Israelites. That's what the new covenant is trying to get people to understand. But, like I said, bro, you was really dropping it you kind of, like I said, you kind of won that dialogue. And it wasn't even much about winning because, I feel you was in the spirit. And to the brother G-Kon, that's what's interesting because, you know what I'm saying, you know what I'm saying, when truth is at a crossroad, you know what I'm saying, the true spirit is revealed sometimes. And you kind of tried to take the brother Shine, and like when he was speaking of how they converted from India to Ethiopia, and he was using the term Africa, I mean, I'm quite sure the brother, he was being real layman with the term. So you kind of took it to a place where you wanted to, actually, you was the first one to use a non-biblical source in your reasoning. You started talking about Asiatics. When you really think about it, it's just Shem, Ham, and Yafet, and you build on that. And that's why I really don't deal with the DNA, because, I mean, like in the 70s, early 80s, they thought asbestos was the best thing since Wonder Bread, and they wound up killing a lot of people. So, you know, science, I mean, the brothers want to dabble in DNA, that's cool, you know, but I really don't. I mean, I kind of stay away from it. But, you know, it's just, you know, I don't really got a question, but it's just funny, you know, how, you know, like certain, I mean, you an apologetic group, but, you know what I'm saying, it's like you totally shifted the conversation and you started kind of bringing in, you know, Kemetic philosophy and, you know, certain terms that, you know, like kind of wasn't true to the topic of the conversation. But I mean, it was, you know, you know, you're an apologist, so it's expected. And I mean, you know, you got some good points too, you know what I'm saying? But if you got a cup of Kool-Aid and you pour it into other cups, and then you take that cup and you pour water in water, it's not going to be strong as that Kool-Aid. The phenotype of the sub-Saharan African is that strong cup of Kool-Aid. You know, you have that cup in all regions of the earth, of the planet. So, you know, that's all I'm going to say. And, you know, good show, Sal. Peace.
G-Con, you can respond. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think that, like, see, it's really like people that's like Gideon, they kind of make a dialogue of of some type of. It says those that compare themselves among themselves are not wise. So when you got Gideon that come in, you know, this brother, he don't too much care for me anyways, especially the group that I'm in. You know, he don't know what it is to have a dialogue like that. So he need to put forth that same effort when it comes to concerning the Ashkenazis. He's another one of them, you know, to put forth that effort when it comes to saying that these people can be Jews just as well as he can, just as well too. Or stop saying that, oh, they stole our identity or this and that. I'm saying, but see, the hypocrisy started to get real. People like him to actually take away from a conversation that caused it to be something that it shouldn't be. You know what I'm saying? Because, you know, he got this versus thing going on. Me and Zadok in Israel always have good conversations. You know, definitely always glad to speak with him. But yeah, we already know the story with that brother already, anyways. So I ain't really got nothing to say about that.
Yeah, Zadok, let him know how you felt about how the direction of the conversation, how it went, in your opinion. That. Mm-hmm.
Oh, the conversation went exactly how I thought it would go, which is why it wasn't a debate. It was termed a discussion between G-Kon and Zadok, because the truth of the matter is that he might have some information that I need to hear, and I might have some information he needs to hear. I have my opinions already. I'm heavily involved in the scripture, and so my thing is whenever I look at science, for Zadok, science does not trump God's word. It has to lockstep. And sometimes, in order for science to make a point, you may find that it steps on a certain bound that you may not be able to go with full confidence, because your confidence is going to lie in the word of God. So I think that the discussion has been great, because I have a whole bunch of brothers who I love dearly who just believe that basically if you black skinned, or they might give you a little bit of light skin look, then you Israel. I got brothers who believe that all 40-something million African Americans are the children of Israel, and I'm asking them, how do they prove it? And the things that I'm hearing just don't add up to me. So what I wanted to do, I wanted to come on and I wanted to hear what someone had to say from them putting forth the effort to try and get into something, to try and get into understanding the genetics. I've been reading on these genetics for about 8 years. I got a lot of science. You know, you got geneticists out here who don't believe that the like we've been talking about the CMHJ all night, and they're like, yo, a lot of the CMHJ can be made up of mitochondrial DNA, and it can't really probably cohesively prove whether you cohanim or not. And the Jewish authorities know it, and they haven't really been able to. They haven't done anything in their laws to say, well, unless you can prove this, we won't consider you Kohen. My thing is, if they believe they Kohen for their people, that's cool. But at the same time, you had those, like in the book of 2 Kings, you had individuals who, once they had learned what the Levites had taught them 7 foreign nations that made up Samaria, they created their own priesthood and claimed to be Kohanim too. So at the end of the day, what we have found is that there is, if you want to get into the ethnobiological, I think it is, or cultural aspects of what it means to be an Israelite, I started off showing that there are those in the land today, professors and even those who make up the laws of the land. Because the science is newer than the laws, even as science brings forth things, and as G-Kon said earlier, there are people over there who are in power, who've been considered like flesh and blood Jews or whatever, and some of them might come up eventually by their DNA to not share certain haplogroups with others. They're still going to consider themselves Israel. So we have as much right, especially when we come from, some of us might come from tribes in Sub-Sahara and West Africa that actually claim an attachment to the culture of Israel. Now, some of them could be people who live in that land who were converts thousands of years ago. I'm fine with that because I'm understanding that that still is a qualification. I just wanted to come on tonight and say, as a Hebrew Israelite, I do not believe that you can for sure prove that you are a descendant of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, because you would have to prove that the haplotype you're following comes exactly from them and not some other Shemitic source. And so with that, I think that some stuff that G-Kon was saying tonight falls in line with that. Even if me and him don't agree 100%, I wanted it to be known all Israelites don't walk around just claiming that we believe we can just prove with our blood, just poke our arm and take a swab and get out of here. That proves that you can find me 4,000 years ago. So I think that the discussion is serving the purpose that I wanted it to serve. I wanted to be honest to the science and also honest to the Bible. I don't want, for the sake of some organization I run or some videos I got on YouTube or something, and some people possibly being turned off. I don't really care about that. If people after truth, then let's be after truth. And if someone want to come on and act like G-Kon just sat up here and talked for about 3 hours and he ain't just know nothing he was talking about, then I just think that they are being dishonest.
G-Kon, you want to respond real quick before I go to the next caller?
Yeah, and I definitely want to make it clear, too, that the only reason why, we having this discussion is actually because of, people going around, trying to make this difference, by way of blood. And so I let them know, like, if you want to have that debate, then it's going to be kind of, or that discussion is going to be it will be kind of hard for you to sit up there and make a claim, which we know, men, Zadok, we already know what it means to be, to be in Christ is everything, besides being a natural Israelite. It means everything to be in Christ. Paul said he counted, all of those things that was gained for him as dung. He was a Hebrew of the Hebrews, a Pharisee, blameless when it came to the law. But he said all of those things he counted as dung because really it's much more than that. And so when you look at it, the reason why, the conversation is edifying is because I want people to really see that, look, these people have as much as right to being Israel just as much as you is, whether if it is spiritually, genetically, or whatever the case may be, they got that. And more so,
you know, they're related. We can see genetically that they are related to these people that's over there in the Middle East, you know, more than sub-Saharan Africans are. And that's where them people come from. And so when you get people arguing tomorrow, well, Jesus went down into Egypt because he was black. No, hold on for a minute. At that time, they've been pushed the black people to the south during the times of Taharka. So when he went down there at that time, it was Arabs there at that time. So we can't make that argument and say, well, this man was black because he went down. No, it was Arabs that was there. People may say, well, the Arabs didn't come in until, no, they've been there. They always been there. Because when you look at it, Ishmael and all of them people was trading with Hagar. I mean, with the Egyptians and the Midianites from the early on. Darius was a pharaoh that came from the east, and then look at the king that actually took over during the time of Moses. Isaiah 52:4 says it was an Assyrian that came and took that place. The Assyrian king says, "My people went down into Egypt before, but the Assyrian oppressed my people." So when you look at it, it was an Assyrian king that the Pharaoh that rose up, whom did not know Jacob, and he rose up, Joseph. And so what I'm saying is this: is the bottom line is that we can't. I want people to hear this to know that there's more Jews that's out there, whether it's they genetically or converts, but these people are still Jews and they following this thing. And so glory be to God, because his word is spread to the ends of the earth. Whether or not if some of those Jews that don't believe at this point, this all in the ends of the earth, whether they black, white, Asian, whatever color, these people have been spread among every people. Every people. So why is it they can be almost every people, but then when you get towards the Ashkenazi Jews or European Jews, which they went to European, those are not the Jews. And then now you want to pick up this book talking about the Khazarian theory. But genetically, they trace back to Middle Eastern people. And we got articles in 2015, 2017 that just came out scientifically that can prove that these people trace back to those areas. And more so have Middle Eastern DNA than European DNA. But then I'm hearing brothers screaming all day long, you know, but when you look at Zechariah 14, nobody wants to address that. Nobody wants to address 2 Thessalonians 2:4 to talk about that he will stand in the temple of God or sit in the temple of God and say that he is God. Nobody wants to address Revelation 11 talking about this temple that's being measured in the altar and the people that's therein, but the outer course is given over to the Gentiles. They'll even tell you to go so far, that's the Millennium Temple. Come on, man. What Millennium Temple is the outer court is going to be given over to the Gentiles? And for 3.5 years. That's not the Millennium Temple.
All right. Gentlemen, we only have one more person that's standing by, person number 1, but we have a lot of people in the overtime part of the show that's checking out, Debate Talk Radio. So we only have one more person at press number 1. I do have an email. I believe it's a comment, though. Yeah, this is from Anonymous Hebrew. It says, that's my point. The older you trace the E haplogroup, the more Afro-Asiatics it is in nature. This is before the Holocene period. That's his comment. We do have a question. Let me see. On Facebook.
Let me respond to that real quick, though, Sal, if I can. That E haplogroup that he's talking about is only probably like 10 to 5,000 years old. The E haplogroup that we see is E1B1A or ED3A. That haplogroup is around about is older than that one. So that E haplogroup that he's talking about is after that. But go ahead, bro.
What about you, Zay? You want to say anything in regards to that comment? You can respond.
No, I don't know nothing about that.
All right, I'll just check it. All right, so let me go to the question here. This is from Yaram Yahoo. Thanks for the question. It says, I have a question. Do they believe that the curses in Deuteronomy and other scriptures, like in Isaiah 32 verse 4, would be genetic make markers? That's the question. I can read it again. I have a question. Do they believe that the curses in Deuteronomy and other scriptures, like in Isaiah 32, verse 4, would be genetic markers?
Well, actually, you can't. I think that you can't identify yourself by the curses, because the very curses that Israel had on them, they got from other nations, and those curses was put on the other nations from the very sins that they was doing, so God cursed them just as well. And then he cursed Israel and put Israel out of their land. Israel was driven out of their land the same way. So we can see that the curses, the same yokes and iron that went on Israel's neck also went on the nations when Nebuchadnezzar led them about, scripturally speaking. So if you're trying to identify yourself by the curses of saying you're Israel, that ain't going to work. That's not going to work, because you got plenty of Africans that suffered. You know what I'm saying? You got the Bible says he was going to move the Egyptians out of their land as well. And that's what he did. He took them out of their land, and then also the Edomites, he said he was going to spread them to the four corners of the earth, and that's what he did. So the wages of sin is death. The way of the transgressor is hard. If you're sinning, universally speaking, it's going to follow you. When you sin, what you sow, it follows you. The transgressions that you do, those repercussions for that, it follows you. That's why the way of the transgressor is hard. So that's what, when God told Israel that, these are universal principles that he was telling them. That's why these universal principles was used on these other nations, because if they were sinning in their wickedness, God brought them on them. And then when Israel got to sinning like the nations, guess what he did? He did the same thing that he did to the nations, put those diseases on them and kicked them out of the land and spread them to the four corners of the earth. And that's what takes place. That's what happens.
All right, Zadok, you can respond.
Yeah. You definitely can follow the curses and trace them on Israel. G-Kon made some points about the curses, but the Lord lets you know that these things would follow you and pursue you wherever you go. The Lord did punish. He's punished all nations. So, for instance, he's punished all nations in some way or another. So, like, for instance, when you read in the book of Isaiah 65, I believe, and it says, the curse have devoured the whole earth, and the earth is burned, and few men left therein. In context, he's not saying that every single nation on earth has had the exact same curses that Israel has had, because there are different nuances of it. So while there is a general curse of sin, and yes, there are penalties that will come on you for doing the sin. So for instance, the Lord told Israel, if you don't do what I tell you, he said, I will bring all the curses of Egypt upon you, and the diseases of Egypt upon you, the sicknesses that Egyptians had, those things will come on you as well, and even the things that aren't written in this book. And then when you follow the curses, one thing about the curses in Deuteronomy 28 and even in Isaiah, or let's go to Leviticus chapter 26, for instance, you can follow and see that a lot of those curses, you can point to where they already happened in the land, and you can see where Israel was put out and where they came back and all of that. But the things about the curses for Israel that is particular, in my opinion, as an Israelite, is this. The curses do not point to just a particular generation. The curses will continue to be a cyclical thing that comes upon you, the same way that Israel fell into their oppression in the days of the judges. They would be oppressed. The Lord let them ride for 20, 30 years. Then when they cry enough, after a few decades, he would raise up a judge. They do good for a while. They start to get back into the evil. He put an enemy on them again, and now they're under this enemy for 50 years. They cry long enough, the Most High he lifts their oppression by sending a judge. The curses are conditional. If you do this, I will do this good to you. If you do this, I will do this evil unto you. And he said these things will pursue you and chase you wherever you are. So the whole thing about it is this, and even when you found yourself in those predicaments, some places you go to, people will be like, man, why is this people in this condition? Or if they came into your land, why is this happening? This is because of what they did against their God, and they broke their covenant with him. So he brought upon them the curses written. And I'll end it with this. You can read Daniel's supplication to the Lord in his prayer closet, at least that we believe that's what happened. If we believe what's written in the scripture, when you read the book of Daniel, Daniel was praying unto the Most High and said, you done brought on us the things that you said by the hand of Moses. But the 10 tribes could have said that too, a couple hundred years earlier when they got put out the land. And we know that a lot of them even came back to the land because the book of Jeremiah tells you that when the Jews got, when the rich from among the Jews got taken to Babylon, the prophet Jeremiah and many other Israelites who were people of no reputation, they were considered the poor, average, they got to stay in the land and they got to farm it. And it tells you that Israelites from the other tribes, when they heard that Nebuchadnezzar had let the poor stay and farm the land, many Israelites from other tribes came back into the land too to live. So, yeah, I do believe that you can, on one hand, look at Israel according to the curses, but I don't think that the curses somehow you can't prove through DNA and where you might be that these curses are on you specifically, because I always say if you think that the blacks here are all the Israelites, then what happens is wherever they live, you don't call the strangers that live among them who poor too. Like I know a whole bunch of white dudes who grew up in poor sections of town, and we treated them just like ourselves because they was in the same predicament we were in. You wouldn't say they were Israelites, but they were suffering the same conditions we were suffering in our neighborhoods. So, everything has a perspective and a context to it.
Right. And I mainly think this is the real thing that I look at. Sin always will follow you. I mean, not saying the payment of sin will always follow you. So I think that's what God was really showing them that when you do wicked things, there's always repercussion behind it. And so that's a universal principle. That's why even the Gentiles, when it said the Gentiles which had not the law, do by law the things by nature contained in the law. So they are without excuse because they know they have an aspect of God that is within them to know good and evil. And when you would do evil, it's always going to follow you. It follows you wherever you go. And so that's what he was really telling get to Israel. Look, and not only that is that because you know better. Like for instance, if you was to look between every black American that came over on the ship, you would have to say that every black American that came over here on these ships were basically Israel, because all of
that is being said.
Israel.
You know that is being said though. That it's a lot
right,
of cats who will say that.
Right. That is being said. But let me ask you a question: do you believe?
Nah.
And the reason why I'm saying it is because the same situation that befell with Hyrcanus them, those Edomites that was with Hyrcanus, that was with those Jews or whatever the case may be, especially even in 70 A.D., the Maccabees during that time, those same Jews in those two portions of times, Edomite times, these people was among Israel. Well, do you think that those things that befall them, either those things actually befall them just as well as Israel?
Yeah, the oppressor wasn't coming in the land saying, you're Edom, you're a Gibeonite, we're only taking the Israelites, y'all can stay. No, that wasn't happening. If you kept the culture, as far as they were concerned, you was Israel, you was the enemy, and you was going to get taken out. There was a lot of Edomite zealots and others, just like the sons of Jacob was. We make the difference. The oppressor coming into the land didn't make that kind of difference. So whoever was there basically I think your point is they would have had to come under that curse too. They would have paid for that same thing you was paying for. They
came up under the same thing. And so when you look at it, when he's bringing those nations, when he's bringing everything he's bringing on Israel is something that the nations actually experienced. They was going through those things because this is the judgment of God. God doesn't stop with his judgment and judge anybody differently. No, he judged them all the same because they all that's the calamity. That's the calamity. That's the evil that he's bringing on them, the repercussions. And so when Israel sinned, he brought those same thing on Israel, except that here's the thing with Israel. When it says that he will gather all nations against Jerusalem to battle, we got to look at that and put that in context. What is that talking about? We can't say that portion of Israel that's in Jerusalem because the cities are going to be taken. The women are going to be ravished. And so who is that is talking about, or what governors, when you look at Zechariah chapter 12, Zechariah 13 is leading up to 14,
who is these people that it's talking about? These people will be inclined politically in the latter times. And that's what the scriptures is actually talking about. And so when you look at it, we can't just look at it and just say, well, okay, this is you know, this is just talking about the people who's experienced this and going through this and that. And no, hold on for a minute. It's people that never came back to the land. They were still experiencing those things that never came back in before 70 AD during the Cyrus. They didn't come back, and they experienced still hatred in those lands from those other people. Even when they came back to the land, they was experiencing hatred. So, you know, I mean, we got to take into consideration those things.
All right, family. Yeah, it's like 11:33 right now on the East Coast, New York City. All right. We have like maybe 2 more people pressing number 1. Yeah, we have 2 more people. Hopefully we get to you, you know, and let's see. I think we have a follow-up to that question on social media. Let me see. Yeah, it says also, with that, Isaiah 32 verse 4, specifically, the part that says instead of, well, set hair boldness, what they consider a documentary like good hair to be genetic senses of the curses. You want to read it again?
The document good hair? You talking about that Chris Rock joint?
Let me read it again. It says also with that Isaiah 32 verse 4, specifically the part that says instead of well said hair boldness, what they consider a documentary like good hair to be genetic senses of that curse. That's the question.
And what scripture in Isaiah was he quoting?
It said Isaiah chapter 32 verse 4. If y'all want to read it, y'all can read it out.
Yeah, it says the heart also of the rash shall understand knowledge, and the tongue of the stammerers shall be ready to speak plainly. I don't know what that's talking about.
Yeah, but you're gonna have to bring more clarity on that. Probably, you know, when you bring more clarity on that, I can read it out though. But Zadok, you want to take a stab at it? Yeah.
Oh, he's talking about Isaiah 3, not 32 and 4. He meant chapter 3, verse 24. That's what he's talking about. I'm like, what? Isaiah 32? Yeah, that's not. No, G-Con. He said that wrong. He's talking about in the book of Isaiah. He's talking about chapter 3.
Yeah, he actually just texted me just now. Not texted me. He actually typed it in the messenger. It is chapter 3, verse 24. He said that you're correct. Go ahead.
Right. Mm-hmm. Right. So when you talk about Jerusalem and Judah being destroyed, and then it talks about verse 16 where it says, moreover, the Lord saith, because the daughters of Zion are haughty and walk with stretched forth necks and wanton eyes. First of all, I believe this is talking about the, even when you look at how they dress, this is not talking about the regular women. This is talking about the women of the aristocratic class. Remember, when Daniel and them went to Babylon, Daniel, 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 Hananiah, Azariah, and Mishael, better known as Belteshazzar, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, they were children who came from the elite in Israel. They came from the ruling class. So here it's talking about the wealthy women of Israel from the ruling class and how they would fall and how the things that they had of beauty. It talks about where they had well-set hair. They will have baldness. Verse 17 says the Lord will smite with a scab the crown of the head of the daughters of Zion, and the Lord will discover their secret parts. In that day, the Lord will take away the bravery of their tinkling ornaments about their feet and all of this stuff. As far as I understand, and I'll read his text, the glasses, the fine linen, the hoods, the veils, and it shall come to pass that instead of a sweet smell, there shall be stink, and instead of a girdle, a rent, and instead of well-set hair, baldness, and instead of a stomacher. What this is talking about here is all fulfilled in the writings of Jeremiah and in the book of Lamentations. So I don't think that's necessarily a genetics thing. That's just a sign of the curse thing, and this is what happened to the wealthy women in Jerusalem, which was the capital city of the king and of the ruling elite of the Levites and the judges in them. When Nebuchadnezzar surrounded that city, the women who were wealthy, they was looking like Beverly Hills. During the siege for 2 years, they started to look like Beirut. They weren't looking like Beverly Hills women no more. They was looking like women living in a war zone, and now they ain't got their wealthiness and all of that no more. So this was already fulfilled during Nebuchadnezzar's terror over Israel. Because remember, Isaiah prophesied to Hezekiah and said, yo, when Hezekiah was sick and the men came from Babylon to visit him when he got better, and Hezekiah showed them everything. And Isaiah said, yo, what did you show those men? Where were they from? He said, it was from Babylon. He said, and I showed them everything. It was nothing in my wealth that I didn't show them. He said, thus saith the Lord, those same people going to come back one day in the time of your children, and they're going to come and they're going to take this place. And Hezekiah said, well, thus saith the Lord, it's better that it happened in that time and not while I'm alive. So basically what Isaiah was saying here actually was fulfilled during the Babylonian siege of Jerusalem. So I don't think it's necessarily a genetic thing.
Yeah, and that's what I say too. Yeah, this is something that does captivity, sieges, scalps, and it says in the body they ain't gonna look like he said, like they supposed to look. It's also some of that also happens in Zechariah 14 too, just as well, when they besiege the city, when they surround Jerusalem to come into Jerusalem, and some of the women are gonna be ravished. And these are basically stuff that we see that happens during war and stuff like that. Even with them burning their dung, even burning using human defecation to basically with feces to cook their food with. You know what I'm saying? To prepare their food with for fuel, because of the siege. They would no longer use wood, and Jeremiah was using dung. Was it Jeremiah? I think it was Jeremiah. Ezekiel, he was using dung, basically. It was Jeremiah, I think. But yeah, so I definitely agree with Zadok. This is dealing with them being out there bad, and have to do certain things.
Hey, I want to add something to it, Sal. What I think the brother is pointing at is what an old camp that I used to deal with, when I was at the Israel of God. This was something that they would like to use to kind of say that, well, we Israel, because go look at our women. So they'll read verse 24 and be like, well, our women walk around like bald head and short hair. They can't grow their hair the way they want, so that's why they wear wigs and weave and all of that. And I hear what they're trying to say. They're trying to make nappy heads proof that the women are Israelite women under the curse. I said, but then y'all point to pictures of sisters over in Africa who y'all say not Israel, and they more bald-headed than the women over here. And then on top of that, if the Lord said he was going, if our women was going to have the bald heads in captivity, and you trying to point these out, see, sisters, y'all Israel, y'all the ones who bald-headed and can't grow your hair. The Lord also said he would take away their chains and their bracelets and their nose jewels and their rings and they changeable suits of apparel. I'm going to tell you where I'm from, homie. Girls can be bald-headed all they want, but they wear all that. They got all the clothes. They got all the jewels. They got the tongue rings, the nose rings, the whole nine. So I don't think it fits. Because the Lord said he was going to take all that too, not just leave them bald-headed. He's going to leave them bald-headed and with nothing. You can point to your sisters, some of your sisters having low hair, but they look good, though. Some of them still. Looking like Lupita out here, man.
I'm looking like a Okoye from Black Panther. There you
go. What kind of stuff is that? What kind of stuff?
What kind of stuff? There you go.
Yeah, you funny.
The remix. Yeah. All right, fellas. We winding down, guys. We winding down. We only have 2 more calls, but you only have. Listen, I want to only give you time to make quick comments now because we kind of winding down. I want us to get cut off, and I want the gentleman to get some final statements. So I'm gonna let the 2 callers get some quick comments, and after that, we're gonna pretty much wrap it up. Let's get some quick comments from the 2 callers. Let's go to 832-274. Quick comments.
Yeah, what's good? What's good, y'all? Good discussion. I just wanted to say that it was edifying, and that I think a real good point that Zadok brought out was the fact that most of the people that were in according to the Bible, everybody started in the Middle East, quote unquote, Eastern Africa / Middle East, quote unquote. So, anybody in West Africa, anybody in America, they migrated there. They came from somewhere. Nobody originated in West Africa and America, so on and so forth. So it ties up together when you listen to these tribes in West Africa that say, no, we originated from the Middle East. No, we originated from Israel, etc. So I just think those were great points, and appreciate the discussion. Thank you.
We appreciate your comments. Let's go to the final caller before you pretty much get some final statements. 323-232, quick comments.
Okay, my quick comment is going to be a little bit off topic. I want to comment on what Zadok said about Josephus saying that Jacob and Esau, the difference was him being hairy. According to the scriptures, it points out way more difference between Jacob and Esau. It talks about two manner of people is in the womb, one stronger than the other one, and one going to serve the other one, and one are destined to be destroyed forever, according to Obadiah. So there's more difference between Jacob and Esau other than them being hairy, according to the Bible. So Josephus can't be accurate, and when he's making that statement, he has to be off because the Bible says otherwise. That's my comment.
All right, we appreciate your comment. We do have one more person that pressed number 1. We're trying to get it in real quick. All right, quick comments, 706-505. Quick comments.
Hey, what's up, Sal? I just want to say this, because I know G-Con, he always mentions, and there's nothing bad against it. He probably doesn't know, or he might know and don't say. So he always mentions the haplogroups like J, R, and E, but there's also other Israelite haplogroups, and this is documented by scientists. There is haplogroups like G, Q, Y haplogroup, L. These are also Israelite haplogroups. Also, if somebody had an A haplogroup, you would say, nah, they're not a Israelite by genetics, but that is not necessarily true because you have the haplogroup A3B2, which is Israelite haplogroup by the Yemenite Jews. Now, I will say this for both of y'all because I don't think y'all know this. When you look at someone's DNA test, how you can tell that they are a genetic Jew based on science, it's called the STR value. You look at the STR value, and the way you determine that is by looking at, you have to know what their haplogroup is, and then you have to look at it. They go from 37 markers and above. So it will start with a DYS, maybe the 410 or 710. That lets you know how many markers it is, and then you look at the value of that, and that's how you can tell if someone has Israelite DNA. So you can't just look at a haplogroup and say, oh, you're not an Israelite, you are an Israelite. No, look at the STR, look at the haplogroup, and look at the STR value at the marker level, and that's how you determine genetically if it's saying that they have Middle Eastern DNA in them. I yield.
I appreciate your quick comment. Let's go to the final quick comment. I know I said that earlier. Skype caller, quick comment. Go ahead.
Yeah, Salam. This is me again. I just wanted to tell y'all good job. And I needed to get a way to get in touch with Zadok and G-Kon so I could send them articles, especially the ones from this Roman cat. It's a Roman geneticist name, Benamino Trombetta. This is the guy that really did all the work on the E haplogroup, and he shows you how they were split. So you had EM2 and then E or V100 basically, and that EM2 or what it was before that, before it was even EV38. That's the one that spread all the way up and even into Northern Europe, into the Middle East, into Northeast Africa, and into West Africa. So it's impossible for those to originate in West Africa. But if I could just get that information so I could email them these articles, that'd be cool. And good dialogue, man. This was a great topic. So shalom, and y'all be easy.
Peace. Hey, Sal, do you have our email addresses? I'll put
that in the description box. Just send it to me via Messenger, and I'll put it in the description box. So if you want to say it on the air, you could, but I'll put it in the description box. Okay.
Okay. I believe that was the anonymous Hebrew. He could send it to my one email address. your boy Zadok. That's YABOYZAYDOK. Your boy Zadok, ZAYDOK at Gmail. YABOYZAYDOK at gmail.com.
And G-Con got an email?
Oh, he sent it. He sent it to you, Sal. He just sent it to
I just got that. Okay, I got you, brother.
Facebook group.
Okay, I got you. I'm going to post all that information, family, in the description box. All right, so we have about 12 minutes in the air, so I'm going to leave you both your mics both open. I want to say some last words.
Okay.
Go ahead. Mm-hmm.
Hey, you know what? First of all, this was dope. I appreciate you taking time, G-Con. I know it kind of helps you as you traveling in that big old rig you be driving. So I know for you it's kind of, a nice little way to kind of get 3-4 hours knocked out on the road while you building. But I wanted to address the gentleman who had just called in, and he said Josephus was wrong. And I don't know who the brother is. I would say he's being genuine to what he believes and what it is, how from the lens he looks through. Josephus isn't wrong. The point that he was making was a different point. Josephus was talking about the physical makeup of the twin brothers. They were identical twins, basically. They just, one was hairier than the other, but in all other ways they were alike. He was talking about their physical appearance. So when you got two different manner of people coming out, that was describing why the kids were wrestling so bad in the womb. And Rebecca asked, and the Lord revealed to her why. You got two manner of nations in you, wrestling in you. It's just like Cain and Abel. We can't really sit up here and say that the brothers had to look too much different in order for Abel to be one manner of man and Cain to be another manner of man. So Esau was a different type cat. Hunter, rough guy. His brother was a keeper of sheep and a more laid-back individual, but yet more cunning. So when you talk about Obadiah and all of these kind of things, I understand that, but that has nothing to do with the point I was making in Josephus. This was a discussion about DNA, and I'm killing the fallacy that our brothers run around saying that Esau is a white, red man. Red has nothing to do with Esau's skin color, and if it do, then the same words in the English in your King James was used to describe King David. The exact same words that describe how Esau looked, that's how David looked. So at the most, you could say an Israelite can look just like an Edomite, any way you slice it, because David looked similar to Esau. Or we just can accept the fact that Jacob and Esau were identical twins. The point that the brother making is the kind of people they turned out to be as nations, but that has nothing to do with Josephus, bro. You don't have to down Josephus. Josephus is more proven in history than any of us on the line dealing today. So I just wanted to say that for the record. That doesn't knock the point you were making, but Josephus was making a point about how the two boys looked when they grew up. They were identical twins. One was just hairier than the other. So that I just wanted to say that on that point. Anything you want to say, G-Con?
Not really. That was the brother. I forgot the brother's name, but I know he liked to get it in. So he he was gonna say something. Oh, what's that brother's name, man? To be on the panel debating. I debated him before.
That's Amayan. Amayan.
Yeah, Amayan. I knew that was him. I knew the voice. Yeah, but
Oh, okay.
Brother, but,
okay, yeah. Salute
yeah. Yeah, but so man, I appreciate the dialogue, man. A great discussion. I love building with you always, man. You right, man, because that helped me out, brother. Because when I started this conversation, I was sleepy and I was tired, and I'm almost at my destination. I had 6.5 hours when I started. Now I got about 2 hours and 25 minutes to get to Chicago. So I knocked down a lot of time. I appreciate the audience out there. I appreciate the Sal Showtime, man. Hopefully we can continue to meet in the future, man, up there in New York or whatever the case may be, man. I get up with you brothers. I'm going to try to get that way this summertime hopefully, and get up. I'm gonna try to get up with Zadok and them because I'm gonna try to St. Louis, man. So I'm gonna get in touch with you, try to bring y'all to St. Louis where y'all can come forward and set up somewhere y'all can come to St. Louis. So you're in 7 now.
Ooh, that's what's up. Yeah, hey, hit me up, bro, because there might be something set up already for us to come that way. I believe I'm going to say the end of September, to somewhere between the end of September and the middle of October. I think we might be trying to come to St. Louis. So hit me up. Hit me up.
All
so
right,
we
cool.
can talk.
Definitely, man. Definitely.
Yeah, that's what's up. So, yeah, I ain't got too much more to say. Let the conversation speak for itself. And this is where I just hope that, you know, for those who may not like this conversation, they didn't like it when they heard it was going to happen. It didn't matter if me and LARON went at each other next. We men, and we men who claim we stand for God, we're supposed to be able to come out here and talk. When are we ever going to be for wanting to find where you and the next man can agree? Is it that every person you meet, you're supposed to be a man of God, and every person you meet and talk to, everything is disagreement? Everything? Like there is nothing? I don't see the spirit of God in that. I'm sorry. So I just appreciate G-Kon for being honest. And I was as honest as I could be with what I understand, and let that be where it's at, so that next time you talk to a man, you know where he stands. Just because a man stands on the other side of the tracks from you don't mean he's trying to hurt you. That's just where he's standing. That's just it, man. We men around here, and prayerfully we men of God more than we just men. So I appreciate it, G-Kon. I appreciate your time, Sal. You be working, you be getting off work, rushing home, doing this, and ain't even had the time to chill. So I appreciate, you know, I know we debate or we have these discussions, round tables, whatever, and people can forget. Sal is the one who always on for every single one, so he's put in more time into this than anybody because he got to sit through every debate and every discussion. So I hope people appreciate you, Sal. I do.
Yeah, most definitely. I mean, the good thing is I enjoy the show, my own show. You know what I'm saying? I enjoy the content. So, you know, it would be definitely hard if I didn't enjoy the content, you know. But, yeah, man, I appreciate both brothers. And we definitely got to meet up, of course, in the very near future. But, yeah, anybody want to put some website information out there for the audience? Any, Zadok, you got any CDs going out? Doing that music and all that? What's going on?
I'll put it out there. I'm not sure, for those of you who might deal with what's called Christian rap music, Christian hip hop. I'm a part of a movement called Hog Mob. We got an 18-city tour coming up in the fall from September to November. This tour is gonna happen over about 10 weeks. It's called the Mob Tour. We're doing 18 cities. If you're interested to know if we're going to be in, if one of them 18 cities will be a city near you, go to HOGMOB.com. Once again, that's HOGMOB.com, and check it out. Also, my local team, my Rebel Against the World team, go to rebelagainsttheworld.com. You can get some free downloads there. You can check out stuff we're doing. And I always, for my church family, my church home where I'm one of the assistant teachers along with my brother Judah, the Congregation Israel, connected to Jesus. You can check us out at congregationisrael.net. Congregationisrael.net. We got some self-sustainability projects going on with our land and our community homes that we own. If you would like to donate or help us out, or you just want to reach out and ask us some questions about, you know, doctrine, what we may believe or whatever, just hit us up, man, congregationisrael.net.
What about you, G-Kon? You got 3 minutes to put a plug in there, man. All
right, yeah, so you can go check me out on G-Konsciousness, my YouTube page. Check out some of the Shield Squad over there that we do. We do a lot of stuff. I'm with Shield Squad, so we do a lot of stuff just as well. You know, go over there and check out Vocab's page, check out Sister Cherry's page. So Real be getting it in over there. And TVCO and also the brother Jordan. You can check out some of their pages. And but just link up with us. You know, my email is laron498@gmail.com. You know, check out Scott Lane, you know, the Black Bruce Wayne. Check him out, True ID Podcast. Go Google that in. And some stuff supposed to be going on in summertime where he's going to be involved in. So a lot of Christian apologists going to be getting it in. So with that being said, I just want to say peace.